Good evening and welcome to the Beverly School Committee's meeting of the Finance and Facilities Subcommittee. Today is March 25th, 2026. We are meeting in a hybrid remote model using a remote meeting application allowing for remote participation and for public access to the open portions of our meeting. We are streaming via Google Meet pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025. The requirement that a quorum of the public body and the chair be physically present in the meeting location remains suspended. There are no remote members tonight participating. So we don't have to do a roll call vote for that. Okay. And I will call the members present. John Taylor.
Yeah, here.
Sheila Sudak.
Here.
Also present, Dr. Peter Cushing.
Present.
Emma Puglisi.
Here.
And Aaron Brown. Here. And then also participating in the background, we have Lindsay Ducharme. Yep, she just doesn't have a microphone. And what was your name again, sir? Rob Mullen, just so for the record. Okay. Oh, and the time was 6:25 that we started our meeting. First on the agenda, we'll have the approval of the meeting minutes. Okay. I'll make that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussions, edits, changes that need to come forward? I did not see anything when I skimmed through it myself. Nope. Okay. All those in favor? All righty. All right, up next, we have gifts to school totaling $1,250 to Beverly High School. I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay. Anyone have any questions before we vote on the gifts to school?
Hey, who's the Kumamoto High School? That's cool.
I am not entirely sure. I believe it has to do with our international partnerships.
Okay, thanks. Okay.
Fantastic. Are we ready for a vote then? All those in favor? All right, vote passes. All right, up next, we have grants acceptance in totaling $20,311. I will make the motion so we can open it up.
Second.
Okay. Is there anything that we want to discuss about this before we do a vote?
Yes, so just two things. The Title III Part A grant that is there, that is different than our general Title III grant. It's for supplemental funding to support immigrant children and youth. And the grant is being led by our Director of Multilingual Learner Education, Ms. Caitlin Beleza, and she has some wonderful additional sort of community building opportunities and professional development that she has planned with those grant funds. And then as they do each year, to which we are extremely grateful, the Beverly Education Foundation has made a number of grant awards to support the Beverly schools through the Fund a Teacher initiative. They will be joining the school committee in the June 7th, I believe, is the meeting. No, that wouldn't be right. That would be a Sunday. But the first meeting in June, and they will be awarding these. So, but they have given us advance notification of the awards. And so we are bringing them forward for acceptance prior to them coming and awarding them at the first meeting in June.
Fantastic. I was reading the last couple on the bottom because I only got 2/3 of the way through them. There's some pretty interesting grants on there. All right. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Miss Emma?
What is morphology? It's kind of a cool grant.
It's the third one down.
Yep. So
That's a cool grant.
Yep. So they did not share the specifics of the grant proposals. So that's a wonderful question. I am not even sure who the educator who applied for it at that point in time. I will find that out when they make the formal award.
Thank you.
Fantastic. All right. Are we ready to vote on the grant acceptances? All right. All those in favor? All righty. It passes. All right. Up next is the student activity accounts for the Beverly High School Art Department. We need a motion to discuss it first, right?
I make a motion to approve it, I guess, or discuss
Yep.
it, whatever.
Second.
So this is a request for a student activity account by the art department. Again, student activity accounts fund student-related activities. It's in the name, so it feels self-explicit. However, it is worth pointing out. So the funds would be used this would allow them to collect money for field trips, awards for art contests, donations, et cetera, as provided in there. It is very important to note, however, that student activities, the funds can only be used for the benefit of the students. They cannot be used to the benefit of advisors. So the art club or the students of the art department may decide to, if they have funds raised, that they may want to make a donation. These funds are, however, not at the discretion of the art department. They are at the discretion of the students to whom are requesting the account.
Fantastic. Does anyone have any questions? No? All right. We'll take a vote. All those in favor? All righty. Motion passes. All right. Up next is our budget transfer. I'll make the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
So this is not the first time we've seen a transfer to fund the additional costs of utilities this year. You'll note that the funds are being transferred from the Reserve for Negotiation, which is the name in our system that is also our lane change. It's our reserve for salary. So even though it's not for negotiations, that's how it's named. Again, we have a lot of work that our chart of accounts could use some naming and some changes to nomenclature. However, that is our reserve for salary specific to lane changes. So there was a little bit of funds left in that. Those have already been awarded this year. Similarly, we have an account called teacher longevity that is actually longevity for all of our units. All longevity payments have been made. Turnover in staff has resulted in a slight available balance in the longevity account that can go to offset some of this, as well as some available funds from what had been budgeted for the 403B match. Our Unit A contract, as well as some of our other union contracts, have a provision for a match to their 403B or 457A, which are retirement accounts, in the amount of $500. And this was an increase this year of the contract for the first year, in which the amount increased and the available pool to whom the match was available for. Previously, it was only staff who had invested their funds with Sentinel, which is one of our 403B providers. the language was now expanded in this contract, available for the first time this year, to contributions to any employer-sponsored plan. In that, we did see that there were larger than anticipated difference between staff who had previously been eligible that we had anticipated would make the necessary changes to their accounts to continue to be eligible, that did not make those changes, again, resulting in the availability of those budget funds in that account.
Fantastic.
And then similarly, I did just want to share, we've talked quite a bit about our utility usage relative to where it had been previously. And again, really because I wanted to make sure that I could share with you some figures that support that the bulk of these costs are not related to increases in usage. Our usage is relatively flat, as well as with a small amount of decrease, which is reflective of, for our electric usage, some of those LED projects that we've done. It is notable some of our natural gas is higher, right? So that's our heating source. This was a particularly cold winter, particularly snowy winter, results in more need for heating. Last year was also a very cold winter. The year before that was a much more mild winter, and you can see that in the utility usage there.
Thank you for the visual.
Does help when it goes up and down. You can, it's easier to keep track of. All right, does anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
I just had some questions, or one question. It seems, Emma, that we're increasing our utility costs and taking it away from the teacher longevity pay. Am I right? I was trying to come up to speed as you were talking, so I apologize.
Yes, so we have funds available in those lines where there are variances between what was budgeted and what ultimately need to be expended. So those lines are, the payments relative to those lines have been made at this point in the year. Our longevity payments generally get made in December, so any available fund in there is a reasonable available fund. Similarly, lane changes, which would be in that reserve for salary line, those get awarded in the early fall. And the 403B match was made in April, beginning of May. So all of those had been spent, so the available funds left in those lines were reasonable to be transferred. There's no longer a need for them to cover their originally budgeted purposes.
Two questions. Two questions, if you'll indulge me. I apologize. One is, you mentioned that teacher longevity is usually paid at the end of when?
December. It's paid in December.
So it seems like for FY '27, we have, or FY '26, we have $260,000 in teacher longevity.
Yes.
Is that a balance sheet
So-
account?
It's an income statement account.
Okay. So why do we have so much money in there?
That is the amended budget. So, because we spent $260,000 on longevity payments across all units. So we had originally budgeted $269,000. The budget change that I'm recommending is the transfer of $8,884 out of that line, leaving a remaining amended budget in that line of $260,524. Of which, if you then look at your year-to-date budget report, which is that income statement expense line, you would see that it was 100% expended.
And then, one last question. Are we, is it your intent to use Mr. Mullen to help with some of the jail coding? You mentioned that some of our ledger coding is, what's the right word? Interesting, challenging.
I mean, I think that there is, from a ability to export directly out of our accounting system, that there is some naming that can be, again, we have used lines historically for the same thing, right? So in maybe last budget cycle, 2 budget cycles ago, all the longevity was consolidated, where historically the teacher longevity all sat in one account, and then the longevity for other units were in their salary accounts, right? So in there right now, the word teacher presents it to be slightly misleading, because in that $260,000, there is not just teacher longevity, it's longevity for all units. it is one of those things that becomes a rainy day activity, right? You put it on the whiteboard, you hope to get to it, and then life continues, and it turns out it's always raining and there's never time for those activities, right? So my hat to Mr. Mullen. I hope he gets to do it. There's a lot of, things like that I think just in general are helpful. But I think from a general, the fact that the lines are relatively consistent for the most part, the naming hasn't changed. I think it's one of those things too, again, right? We want to make sure our information is accessible and transparent, and that is helpful when accounts are named in a way where the public doesn't need the cliff note or the footnote that goes with it. And also, part of why it is nice that we get to have these conversations and our good friends at BevCam get to stream them so that people do have access to this information as well.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? All right. Are we all set to vote for the budget transfers then? All those in favor? Set. Up next, we have policy audits.
Are we doing DIA first? Yeah.
The DIE audits.
Yes.
I'll make the motion. Do I have a second?
Sure. Yes, second.
All righty. Now we can open up for discussion, and Miss Emma.
Absolutely. So before I open a copy of the policy, the sort of brief synopsis says that we should have an audit conducted annually, and that it is at the discretion of the school committee to request a private audit if it so chooses. So to that end, I wanted to share a little bit of context, which is to say that this policy is exactly in line with the MASC policy, and wanted to provide assurance to the committee and to the public that we undergo an annual audit every single year. So we are audited at the same time as the city is audited every year. We share an auditor because, again, we are a department of the city of Beverly. Our audit firm is Roselli & Clark. They were new to us this year. Prior to that, for many, many years, Powers & Sullivan had been the auditors for the city. The city council, through their property and finance subcommittee, had put together an audit subcommittee to put out to bid audit services for the city. Even though audit services are exempt from Chapter 30B procurement law, it's one of the very few exemptions that exists, is for auditors. This was an opportunity to really solicit and to open up the opportunity to have other auditors, with the acknowledgement from the committee that there are benefits to having consistent auditors in that they get to know you, they get to know your business, and they get to know once they get to know you, it can lend to different lines of questioning, but also with the acknowledgement that new eyes and fresh eyes can be a very helpful and beneficial thing. And so not that the recommendation is ever to get new auditors year over year. That would be a very arduous process, but to that it is reasonable for the city to periodically look and see if new auditors might be something that is desirable. Roselli & Clark is a wonderful firm. They are have a strong focus in municipalities, which is very helpful. The rules that govern municipalities are different than the rules that govern private organizations or not-for-profit organizations, and so it is very helpful. And so I've provided you with a couple of links here just so that they'll be linked in perpetuity. So this is our annual comprehensive financial report. Oh, that link didn't take us. All right. Is it going to... If I do it over here, I beg your pardon, I apologize.
I believe it's on the city website.
It is on the city website,
Those who wish to.
and I will update that link. It is a very long and comprehensive document.
It is.
But it is very robust and very helpful. I also have a copy for you of our single audit. The single audit used to be known as the A133, for those in the way back machine. It is an audit of federal funds. We'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later in tonight's presentation as well. But that is our audit of federal funds that gets submitted to the National Clearinghouse. And then additionally, the end of year report, which is a comprehensive report of spending by the district across all funding sources that we file with DESE every year, gets audited as well. And so there's a copy of that audit report there. So really just sharing that to have those all in one place, and to document that we do on an annual basis go through a few different iterations of somebody ticking and tying and checking our balances to make sure that things are compliant, and that things are being reported on, and that should there be a need for red flags or concerns, that there's an opportunity for somebody outside of the organization, should that ever need to happen, to have a mechanism for that to happen.
Yes, go ahead.
So for the public, has Roselli and Clark ever made any recommendations to the schools about anything?
There have not been any audit findings. There are, again, when new auditors come in, they tend to take a new look at things. They have a different perspective. And so there are some questions they raise some questions relative to the way that we track our federal and state grants, really just that we have them all in two funds instead of having them differently. And so really it just makes it a longer exercise to come up with the individual grant balance within the fund. So again, nothing of any materiality, nothing relative to process, procedure, internal controls. But that was the number one sort of takeaway, that there might be some ways to, again, improve our internal reporting.
Go ahead.
So just so the people at home know, Tony Roselli of Roselli and Clark, he was a former chairperson, I think, of the Massachusetts Association of School Business Officers, I think. I don't know that for a fact, but I know he was involved with them. So I think that's very helpful. That's all I have to say.
All righty, and this is one that we're voting on, yes. All righty, anybody have any other questions? Nope. All righty. So our motion is to vote on this policy as is. Are we ready for a vote? Yep. Okay, all those in favor? All right. Okay. I beg my pardon. I would just like to mention, I did skip over the buildings and grounds because we did have a late start, and I wanted to get all of our items for approval out there first. So if we have time, we'll go back to that. But I wanted to make sure we got all of our important business done first.
I appreciate that.
Up next is policy KDB, public's right to know. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All right, I'll second it. All right, now it's open for discussion.
All right. So this policy is another policy where it, again, is very similar to, this is, I think, really a reiteration of some of the laws that are applicable to school districts, specifically the district's requirement to be responsive to public records requests. They're very often called FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act, but in Massachusetts, it's generally governed by the Massachusetts public records request laws. And so this really, again, is in line with that. And again, should this policy not exist, we would still be required to be compliant with those laws. And so what is within this would still stand.
Okay. Questions?
You know I have questions.
I know you have questions.
So I'm wondering if it would be helpful for us, and tell me if I'm wrong, to put some reference. There's a Supreme Judicial Court case going on right now about this very topic with the city of Malden. They're having a fight about harassment and public records request. I don't know if we want to make a reference to that case or not. We don't have to.
I would offer that generally we have not referenced case law, and until there were a binding decision where there even something that could be referenced, generally we will reference relevant statute, but we historically have not made reference to case law. I think the policy committee would have quite a bit of work cut out for them if we were going to make that endeavor.
Don't be making
Listen, I was on policy committee once. Just saying. Alrighty. Does anybody else have any questions? No. And we're voting on the policy as it is here, the source MASC. Okay. All those in favor? Alrighty. Okay. Up next, the floor is going to Emma. We're going to have an overview of reporting obligations with financial impacts.
Yes, I know, so much fun. But given that we had the opportunity tonight to talk a little bit about audits, and as we have gone through the budget process, a couple of things have come up relative to, and we've talked about our revenues, and a lot of our revenues are impacted by some of the reporting that we do. And I want to make sure that this body is aware of what those responsibilities are that the district undertakes, as well as an awareness that there are consequences should they not. And we do participate in all of them, and there are checks and balances, right? There's not the version of the world where I could not file my end of year report and you not find out about it. I do share a copy of the audit with you. The state would absolutely be knocking on your door if I was non-responsive to them in filing that. And also there's a number of reporting obligations that both myself and other members of the district administration take part in that have an impact on the district's ability to collect revenue. And I wanted to really use this as an opportunity to share that with you. So here are just a few, because I'm aware of our time and we could talk all night long about these things, but they include our SIMS reporting, our grant reporting, our end of year report, and our circuit breaker claim. And so SIMS reporting is our student information management system. During the budget process and in our budget book, when we talk about enrollments, generally we talk about our October 1st enrollment date and our data on October 1st, because that is the first and largest student information reporting deadline that we have as a district. And so again, that allows us, because again, enrollments will fluctuate on any given day of the year, day over day, as students move in and out of our district and families move in and out of our district. And so that allows a shared reference point, and allows really comprehensive reporting. So the SIMS reporting is comprehensive student level data collection, and we transmit to the state, and it includes individual student information. So everything from a student's name, age, address, race, gender, if they are identified as a student with an IEP, if they're identified as a student who is one of those other sort of high needs populations that we've talked about, multilingual learner, English as a first language, somebody who might be considered low income, all of that information is reported. Additionally, at other points throughout the year, we report on students' class schedules and what classes they're taking and their attendance and how they make progress and student discipline. And again, all of this very comprehensive data that we report to the state at multiple points during the year. This data is used in a myriad of different ways, but relative to the work that we do here together in F&F, some of the financial impacts are that these figures are used to determine state aid for our Chapter 70 funding. The state funding formula relies on enrollment numbers and student characteristics. So as I mentioned, some of those high need populations, students who attend vocational programs, all of those things at a different dollar value to the Chapter 70 formula when they look at our foundation budget. And so all of that information is based on the information that we report via SIMS. Similarly, charter school assessments, the SIMS data reporting clarifies which sending town or city is financially responsible for the tuition assessment. And various grant allocations, such as our Title I and IDEA fundings, are calculated using SIMS poverty and demographic data. Again, when our student demographic data becomes influential in the calculation of grant awards, like our Title I, our IDEA, our CEP eligibility, all of that is relative to our SIMS information. So this is just a brief overview of what that SIMS reporting schedule looks like and all of the different reports that go into that. This is a very robust reporting. I do not want to oversimplify it. There is quite a bit of work that the team does to make sure that all this information is in there. And then again, this allows for the state to do calculations, not just relative to financial impacts, but also relative to demographic data that you might see on our state report card issued by DESE, our district report card, other information like that as well.
Sorry. Just a quick question. I work with data all day long, so I know that the data out is only as good as the data put in. So how is this information put in? Is there a standardized form that is followed, or is it just each person puts in how they want to?
It depends on the piece of data. So very often it starts from a similar data point, right? So a lot of this is based on information collected during the registration process. So all of our families fill out the same registration paperwork. That information is then transmitted over. There are times where, because the transmission of data is decentralized to get it from the registration paperwork into our student management system, there is fluctuation in how information gets reported. There is sometimes the frustration that we cannot necessarily require families to report certain information to us. However, the state requires that we report it to them. And again, a lot of this information does require a lot of verification and checking. And so to your point, it is only as good coming out as it is put in. And there's a lot of work done by the team, and specifically by Megan Sudak, to make sure that the data is streamlined and accurate. DESE has a number of data checkpoints. So we will upload things, they will flag it, they'll kick things back. They can tell us this is different. Oh, this kid might be in here twice. Oh, we asked for the city of birth and you wrote Massachusetts. And so that is a state, not a city. And so just constant needing to review our data and check our data to make sure that it is consistent and coherent.
Thank you.
Good question.
So similarly, for our grants, there's quite a bit of reporting that we do. For our federal and state grants, we do periodic expenditure reporting, as these are reimbursement-based grants. And so we need to report on what we've expended and how we've expended it. Programmatic and outcome data reporting. So grants like Title I and Title IV require us to document data to document progress, or to do either progress in student achievement or progress towards SMART goals that we've written as part of the grant application process. And we have an obligation for time and effort reporting. So any staff paid by federal grants need to certify that their time is spent on the allowed grant activities. And then similarly, we have that single audit that we talked about before. So districts who receive $750,000 or more in federal grant awards must undergo the single audit. And failure to participate in any one of these things can jeopardize our availability of funding. So funds can either be reclaimed, and should we really be non-compliant, could jeopardize our ability to continue to collect federal funds moving forward. And again, when we talk about federal grants, those are the grants that we generally talk about, our title grants, our IDEA grants. But I do also want to note that the federal portion of the school lunch program is considered by the federal government a federal grant. And so that alone generally sets us over the threshold. So even if that was our only, if we had no other grants, we'd still be subject to the single audit requirements.
So in order to receive our grants, I imagine we have to do reporting
Yes.
on them, on our efforts, and they pay us back. And, okay. And I assume Mr. Mullen knows how to do this, because that'll impact whether, or you'll train him.
I have every confidence that Mr. Mellon already participates in this work in his current role. And should he have any questions, I'm never more than a phone call away. But this is very standard across, this is not specific to Beverly, this is for districts across the Commonwealth. And for the single audit, the auditors really lead that process. We provide data, but they lead that process. We talked a little bit before about the end of year report. The end of year report is used by DESE to ensure compliance with net school spending, which is the minimum amount that a municipality and school district have to spend on public education. The state has a formula based on enrollment, demographics, and financial availability of the tax base of the city. Net school spending is really the floor. It's never the ceiling. We have to be compliant with it at minimum. It is very rarely the target. Sometimes districts will talk about how much more than net school spending they spend on education. Beverly is about 10% over net school spending that we contribute towards the public school system. DESE also uses our end of year report to ensure compliance with certain federal grants and entitlements. And really those are maintenance of effort calculations. So for both Title I and IDEA, there is a requirement, and for really all of our federal grants, that we supplement and not supplant. And so really how they make sure that we are compliant with that, and to make sure that we are not using the availability of federal funding to then not appropriate tax dollars towards those same efforts, is to ensure that we have spent at minimum the same number of dollars as the prior year on things that are designated as either Title I activities or IDEA specific activities. And they do that through the end of year reporting.
I'll just ask a clarifying question. It seems like the end of year reporting has a whole lot of information that's duplicative of the stuff the data that Ms. Sudak referenced. Is that a correct statement?
It is not that
Clarifying.
they're duplicative, it's that they're both pieces into the formula that calculate these things. So the SIMS data is really relative to the enrollment and the student information, where the end of year report is a reporting of all the dollars spent on district to the benefit of the public education of the students of the city of Beverly. So it includes not just spending from our appropriated budget, but also from all grants, all revolving funds, and spending done by the city on behalf of the public schools as well. So whether that's indirect cost allocations, that's the fact that the city pays debt out of their debt service line that support payments on this building and other school buildings. Those two things together come to those calculations. So the net school spending requires a knowledge about how many students and what the demographics of those students are. And then compliance with the net school spending is the piece where they say, you had this many students, you told me that in your SIMS data, then you told me you spent this many dollars. Do those two things line up? And then the end of year report is also a large source of comparative financial information that DESE uses and publishes on their website. So per pupil expenditure is frequently a conversation, average teacher salary, all of that information again. So per pupil expenditure, the denominator of that comes from our SIMS reporting, right? How many students do we have? And the numerator comes from how many total dollars were spent. So those two things come together for that calculation of the per pupil expenditure. Similarly, average teacher salary, we do, and not discussed in this presentation, reporting that's referred to as EPIMS reporting, and that's reporting on education staff in the district. And that in that we report how many teachers we have under certain, codifications. And then when I report the salaries of those positions in the end of year report, then the state does some division and they say, this is how many dollars you spent on cumulatively teacher salaries. This is how many teachers you reported having. And that's how they come up with their average teacher salary. It is not, tell me how much each teacher made. It's how much did you report as paying teachers. It is also how sometimes there is variation between district to district. So the state offers robust guidance on what should be reported in each line of the end of year report. But some districts may include stipends in one codification, where another district might include similar stipends in a different codification that could lead to variances in the calculation of some of these things. Another piece of reporting that we do that has financial impact is the reporting relative to circuit breaker reimbursement. So during the budget process, right, we talk about our budget offsets and we talk about what we will fund via circuit breaker and how much of the circuit breaker funds we will use to offset our budget. So the Massachusetts Circuit Breaker Program provides financial assistance to public school districts to offset the cost of delivering high-cost special education services to students. For the most part, these are out-of-district tuitions and the associated transportation costs. We report on a per-student basis the total cost of tuition and transportation. And then the state takes our information and everybody else's information, and as well as the total amount that they've appropriated in the state budget to fund circuit breaker, and they will reimburse up to 75% of eligible costs for tuition and transportation. I point this one out as an important piece of financial impact because should this be neglected, this is a substantial source of revenue that the budget requires, right? So we are budgeting $4.2 million, I believe, of circuit breaker offset to the FY27 budget. So should this be something that should it not be paid well attention to, it is something that could have an impact. And I say that, and also in the same breath want to say that I have every confidence. This is reporting that is done by our special education office and then reviewed in partnership with the business office. But there are very strict and reporting guidelines and deadlines of what is allowed, what is not allowed. All of the reported costs need to tie to a student's IEP. It needs to be a signed IEP. None of those expenditures can be made prior to the date of the signature on the IEP. All of these things that I'm talking about today are things that DESE will come in and audit. DESE did come in and audit our circuit breaker claim actually this year. And there were no substantial findings in that audit, but it is, again, goes to show that these are very robust and do make up a large portion of our funding. And so again, just something that I think this committee ought to know as something to just keep an eye towards.
Sorry. So obviously data and all of this is very important. So what can we do as the committee, as well as what can we do to help standardize and ensure that we are reporting the correct data? Because obviously the data we report is what the state is giving us money for, correct?
Yes.
So how can we as a committee help ensure that that data is correct and current and reportable?
Absolutely.
I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yeah. So I think, right, a lot of this comes to the operation implementation. I'm not going to try to say the other word. Of our different policies and procedures. So really making sure, I think from this committee's standpoint, knowing what those deadlines are so that you have the opportunity just to inquire and to make sure that you know that they've been submitted. And then once they've been submitted, asking if there are things that are concerned. Have we seen a large fluctuation in our enrollment that could then impact our Chapter 70 funding, right? Have we, when we submitted our claim, was there for a circuit breaker, did we submit it on time? Do you have a projected, maximum claim reimbursement? Because again, it's all subject to, there's one big pot of money for the state, and then everybody submits their claim. They fund the tuition piece of it first, and then they divvy up what's left for the transportation piece. But really keeping an eye to what those deadlines are, I think, is helpful. So the circuit breaker, for instance, that claim has to be submitted roughly by July 15th, depending on where the weekend falls. Sometimes it's July 14th. So really just checking in and making sure that there aren't fluctuations that would be helpful for the committee to know. Other than that, I would say that really it's the responsibility of the administration, but more that I want the committee to know that there are things that we do on a day-to-day that, should they not be done, could have a substantial impact. And I have no reason to think that they would not happen. And I don't think that there's any need for any sort of micromanagement, but I think it is just sort of helpful to know what that cadence is and how these pieces of information feed into each other. Especially around, right, enrollment, and when we look at the changing demographics of our city, to really help understand, to give the committee a robust perspective of what that means relative to our state funding, and then also to sort of look a little bit past that and to be able to say, okay, right, the state funding formula provides for the foundation and for the foundation budget additional funds for students who may fall into certain demographics because the state acknowledges that students within those demographics may require additional supports. And so I think, right, taking a critical lens towards what are those demographic populations, is there something that we should be inferring from that data, I think helps provide this committee with further insight, and is a really helpful line of questioning, right? Like if we have this data in front of us, right, we have the DESI interpretation, which is here's the formula, right? But then I think turning to the administration to ask, if we pull the layers back, is there something else we should be inferring from that data? I think that is really a helpful piece of that as well.
She's gonna kill me. I believe you do have someone in the office that does look at the data. Maybe it would be helpful if they came and presented to us at the beginning of the year or sometime during the year.
I think that would be great. Yes, we are very lucky. We have a number of talented staff specifically that look at our data, including Megan Sudak, who looks at our data to ensure that it is consistent, that it is well documented, and again, takes a look at some of those layers. And so it's not just, here's what the information is, but also what can we infer from that, right? And so I think that would be a fabulous idea. Gonna look to you, Mr. Mullen. And I would agree that I don't want to make an obligation to the committee when I won't be here, but I do think that that would be a really helpful sort of insight into maybe sometime after the October 1 reporting is done to sort of look, again, comparative data is helpful too, right? To look at what our data is now relative to what it has been. Sometimes the meaning is really in that comparative data, and I think that would be a great idea.
Yeah, I just want to echo Ms. Sudak's excellent point. I think internal controls is a really important thing, and I know that we've had conversations about that, but I want to make sure our community is aware that what Ms. Sudak, referenced, how can we make sure that the procedures are in place? And I know we're getting into a wishy-washy world because the school committee has oversight over policies, but it's really important that we have internal control policies that are being implemented by the district in a way that we expect.
I would absolutely agree with that.
Thank you,
right?
Ms. Sudak, for bringing that up.
I would absolutely agree. I think, right, the place where policy and procedure come together is a very critical point. And to make sure that we're doing that in a way that, again, because there could be very substantial ramifications to the district, right? Should there be a lax attitude towards reporting, or should there be substantial misreporting, even if purely accidental, could have consequence. And so really making sure that, and again, part of why I shared is, again, you can't pay attention to things that you don't know are there. This opens up that opportunity to ask questions, and to, I do agree that I think bringing some of that information, some of that more specific data to this committee could be incredibly helpful, and also a nice way to provide a check-in, right? So that the committee knows that it's being reported on, and to, again, provide some of that insight of, again, if we look past just the figures at what those figures are telling us, what is the story that goes with them? I think that's very helpful.
Thank you. I appreciate everything you're sharing with us. It is very eye-opening.
Absolutely. And so that is the end of that presentation. Again, there are a number of other reporting obligations and things that we do on any given day that have financial implications, but really wanting to make sure that some of those larger scale ones that have sort of those far-reaching and multiple implications are on this committee's radar. And for the first time, at least in the past few months, we have a little bit of time. I want to make sure that we have some time for people to take a break in between our two meetings. But I did want to have a chance to share our revenue reports. And so you can see, right, we are nearing the end of our year. The city appropriation gets, quote, deposited into our budget as a revenue on a quarterly basis. So this last to be collected is that last quarterly transfer that they'll book on their side on June 30th, but we know they're good for it. School choice is paid on a monthly basis. I didn't talk about the school choice claim. The process is very similar to the circuit breaker claim, except that it happens during the year. There's two reportings. There's fall reporting and spring reporting. In the spring reporting, we also do the special education incremental billing. And so we get paid in the given year for the claim for that year. And so that number may fluctuate as we move through the year and as we do those claims billing, and they'll always true that up at the end of June. The circuit breaker payment will come in quarterly installments. And so we are expecting another quarter's that'll come in at the end of June. Our special education tuition, you can see that number in the to be collected column is negative. What that means is we have actually collected more than originally budgeted. So that's why that's negative. I just wanted to provide that as clarification. And really that is to say that in there, relative to what we had budgeted, we're a little bit further ahead than we had thought we might be. That's relative to, we do contract out our teacher of the deaf and assistant teacher of the deaf, and that's really where that variance would come from, as that's something that's not always guaranteed, as it's based on needs of districts. The transportation revolving fund is anticipating lower collections than originally budgeted. We've been there all year. That's not anything new. We have sufficient carry forward to cover that, and as you will recall from this past budget cycle, we have modified our revenue forecast for the upcoming year based on this trend for collection of receipts. That really has a lot to do with not the participation level, but the number of students that qualify for scholarships. Similarly, this negative for building rentals means that we have collected a little bit more than we had budgeted so far this year, so that's not a bad place to be. We still have June collections for our preschool revolving tuition, and there are still some revenues to be posted for the spring sports in the athletic user fees. And then relative to expenses, right now we are at the point in the year where our lines start to look pretty spent. That's not a bad thing. We especially, so about a week or so ago, I did issue guidance to all of our purchasing folks within the district to ask that all encumbrances that will be, or all purchases that will be made between now and the end of the year are encumbered by June 1st. So that requisitions go through. So that gives us an opportunity to really make sure that we have sufficient time to place our orders, receive our orders. If there's any fluctuation and variation in sort of anticipated needs, we can address those. And if there is any sort of, remaining little bits of discretion, if there are things that were cropped up during the year that had not previously been budgeted, this is the opportunity for the time of year where we might look at some of those. So as a point of example, during the budget process, as a capital request, our nurse leader, Jody Elder, had brought forward a request to replace some of our AEDs across the district as they were reaching term of life. That was not something that had been budgeted this year. It is capital, I like to call it lowercase c capital, in that it's not the kind of capital that winds up on the city's capital plan. However, it is something with a dollar value of more than $10,000 and a life of more than 5 years. And so it's not really like a one-time cost. It does have some life. And so those are the kind of things that we'll look to at the end of the year. If we have a little bit of money here between accounts, generally at the end of the year, we'll consolidate that money into one account and allow us to sort of chip away at some of those things to make sure that the district has what it needs and allows us to address some of those items.
What account would you throw them into?
It would depend on what the nature is, right? So that would be like, so for AEDs as an example, I would move then the money that, if there was money available across other lines, let's say, right, we needed less custodial overtime and I have some available funds there, I might then transfer those funds via budget transfer. That would come here because it would be between cost centers. I would transfer that to usually like our nursing line. Our nursing supplies line is what I'd probably consider an AED. Again, we try to make sure that expenses are coded to the GL code that is most reflective of it to allow for consistent reporting year over year. And to make sure that we're, it's reflective of actually how we're spending our funds.
One last question for you, and I know you want to talk generally, but snow removal is out of sight.
Yes.
It's like 222%
Yes.
over budget. So
Yes.
can you talk briefly about what
Absolutely. So the reason why I have left that as sort of a lingering deficit to the tune of like $212,000, yes, is because I do anticipate that we will have funds available at the end of the year to cover it, right? So we have some savings from some roofing repairs that we budget for that we ultimately didn't need to do this year. And so I anticipate that we will have the availability of fundings to transfer and available budgets into that line at the end of the year to cover that deficit. The reason why I have not done that yet is that snow and ice removal is one of those places where there is an allowance in the law should the city need it to sort of hold it as an exemption on the tax recap. Similarly, I'm under the impression that the city similarly has a deficit in their snow and ice account that they, I believe, are going to city council for, or they intend to go to city council for. And that, again, would be one of those places that, should we not have sufficient budget funds to cover it, I would happily stand in front of city council and ask for relief, or for them to make a determination that they were going to hold it aside on the tax recap.
I thought the state allowed us to ask for money for that.
So that would be the provision for the tax recap, right? So that really, when the state allows us to ask for more money, that's the hold aside on the tax recap, in that you could ask for that deficit in next year and it not be subject to the 2.5 levy limit increase.
And I would also like to add, we live in Massachusetts, so you never know when we're going to have a week of 70-degree weather and then get hit with 2 feet of snow.
Yes. And to which we are very appreciative for our friends at B&G and DPS, because when those 2 feet of snow hit, they helped dig us out, and we appreciate them greatly. Were there any other specific questions. At this point in time, there are no, other than the utilities, which are continuing to give me heartburn, but not so much so that I'm losing sleep. There's not any place that I am critically watching or holding my breath for at this point in time, but I do want to provide the opportunity to the committee if there was anything that caught your eye as you were going through.
I was just looking at Centerville teachers. It seems like they've got a variance. Is that right, of 522,000, or am I reading that wrong?
That is the available budget left in that line. So our teachers are paid on what we call a 26 pay cycle frequency, which means that we take their annual salary, we divide it by 26. We don't pay them through the summer, but instead the last paycheck of the year is what we call a balloon check, and equivalent to 5 paychecks. And so right now we have 2 payrolls left, one of which is the balloon check. So they have about 6 paychecks left. So that available budget remainder is equivalent to 6/26 of the total budget for those salary lines. So again, because we have a number of different pay frequencies across the district, so if you look above, you'll see that the principal line, who is a 52-week employee who gets paid weekly, doesn't get a bubble check. That salary line is spent differently than the teacher lines. However, they're both where I would expect them to be at this point of the year based on how many payrolls are left for the rest of the year.
Can I ask another question?
One more.
Yeah, one more, because we have 6 minutes to go. Is it possible, or does Munis not play nice, to download this in Excel, or no? Do they not play nice?
You can download it into Excel.
Here's the bot.
I think depending on how you want to use that information, it is more or less helpful. But it does, and if that is something that you're interested in, I'm happy to provide you with that to see if it sort of accomplishes what you desire. But you wind up with lots of extra lines.
Fantastic. You have anything else, Miss Emma?
I do not. Thank you very much, as always.
I'm going to call the motion to adjourn.
Second.
The time is 7:26, and we are adjourned.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to get us started. Before I call us into order, I want to just acknowledge that, as we know, sometimes the mayor has mayoral duties that take him away, and so he's not able to be here for the start of the meeting, but I'm told that he's going to try to come shortly. Before I call us to order, I also want to just sort of take a moment to talk about a couple of the items that we're going to talk through tonight on the agenda. We have a couple meeting records that we're going to, a couple meeting minutes that we're going to approve from April 29th and May 13th. The superintendent has a couple things he's going to walk through for us. Ms. Visnick is not able to be here tonight, so I'm going to do my best interpretation of Ms. Visnick and address the items that she has on the school committee president reports. And then we have a couple reports from subcommittees, from finance and facilities, and from curriculum, instruction, and student life. Finance and facilities being Ms. Coelho, curriculum, instruction, and student life being myself. There'll be an opportunity for communications from school committee members, and then we do have executive session. So I'm going to call us to order. Today is Wednesday, May 27th. It is now 7:34 p.m. If we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Cahill, would you mind leading us in the pledge? That would be great.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Cahill. We have, in the agenda, you received, again, 2 meeting minute records for April 29th, Committee of the Whole, and then the May 13th budget hearing. Before we discuss any questions, concerns, or comments, that is an action item, and so I'll need a motion and a second, if anybody would be so inclined.
So moved.
That was Ms. Coelho? Yes. Second. And Ms. Cahill? Okay. I'm going to lump the two together and ask, does anybody have any comments, questions, and concerns on either the meeting minutes for the Committee of the Whole, again, on April 29th, 2026, or on the budget hearing, May 13th, 2026? Okay, seeing none. All in favor? Oh, please, I'm sorry. No, that's okay.
I think there's a typo, and
Okay.
should it say on the first page? I'm
Which
sorry.
one?
Wednesday, April 29th, 2026, line 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm just trying to get there. Sorry,
So
one
it's the
second.
second page.
Okay, I know that Ms. Quill is probably following along, but I just want to make sure that I am also following along in case we need to make any amendments. Where did I pass by it in our packet? Sorry, I know it's here. Literally the second page. Oh, well, she said that once or twice, didn't she? Okay, second page, I'm sorry, if you could,
Page 2, line 4, it says Ms. Abel.
page 2, line 4.
Ms. Abel announced at BevCam.
Why am I not seeing it? Sorry.
If it were a book, it would be page 3. So this is the cover page. And then
Yeah.
this
that's what-
page.
Oh,
And it should say Ms. Bisnick instead of Ms. Abel.
I'm not seeing Miss Abel anywhere.
Oh, that's so weird. Okay,
Maybe it's just on ours.
okay, thank you.
That's okay. So is it under, Ms. Frost, is it under call to order, or what do you think? Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Okay, so that is supposed to say Ms. Visnick. Okay. So is it your motion, Ms. Frost, to change, obviously, from Ms. Abel to Ms. Visnick?
Yes, please, so moved.
Okay. I don't know that it's necessary, but can I get a second on that? Okay, so let me just keep track. Frost, 1, Cahill, 2. Okay, so do I have a motion to approve these meeting minutes for April 29th with the adjustment of Ms. Abel to Ms. Visnick in the third, fourth line down under the beginning summary paragraph, and also for the May 13th, 2026 budget hearing meeting minutes?
So moved.
Let's say, so, okay, all in favor? I think that was a repeat, but We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tonight. That passes 7-0. Okay. Dr. Cushing, are you ready for your superintendent report section?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
That's why she only did these two.
Mr. Sharp?
Mr. Taylor?
What's going on with the 520 budget discussion and vote?
We didn't have I apologize, I'm sorry, thank you for bringing that to my attention. We didn't have the meeting minutes ready for 5:20, I apologize, so we're skipping over those. So you might have noticed that in the packet that you received in your email that we didn't have a hyperlink for those meeting minutes. Yeah, so those weren't available, sorry about that. But thank you for allowing me to clarify. Dr. Cushing, when you're ready.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Let me just do what I'm supposed to do here. All right, good evening. Thank you very much, members, for being here this evening and participating in this report that for the first time in a long time will not focus on budget. I wanted to take a few minutes to give a shout out to Centerville Elementary School and Principal Julie Smith for seeking out and receiving an I guess we can call it a grant award, but it was a donation in kind of bicycles from an organization called Cycle Kids. So Cycle Kids is a nonprofit organization that helps fund schools to have cycling as part of their academic program during physical education. And so they produce bikes. They actually produce bikes that at one time were for sale publicly and probably will be again, but the pandemic disruptions around cycling put a little bit of kink in that. But basically, children learn how to ride a bike and safely on the road, gaining confidence. It allows them to bike to school more frequently. It is not giving kids their own bike, but it's giving them the curriculum materials for teachers to use. It also has nutrition lessons woven in as part of it, making healthy eating researches and things of that nature. In speaking to the program founder, she recounted a story in another school of a girl who her friends were stressed out about a math test, and she had just spent a couple of weeks going in early to work with the teacher on how to learn to ride the bike. And as they were going in, and she said, I've learned how to ride a bike, a math test is nothing. And so it allows students to build confidence in other areas. So last Wednesday, apologize, for some reason I'm sick again. Their motto is confident, focused, healthy kids. Every kid gets a t-shirt. We have one of the instructors there fitting Lennox. Sorry, I don't know Lennox's last name, but shout out to Lennox, who will also be featured in a small video on our Facebook page tomorrow. And the school is given helmets. So the school is provided with 24 helmets. And you can see the instructor doing a fit test. This gentleman lives in Harvard, Massachusetts. His wife's a professional cycler. His daughter was there as well. The day requires a $25,000 sponsorship to Cycle Kids. That fee was paid by a cycling group called the McGregors. You have to say it with a Scottish brogue, as we learned that day. And so you see in the picture on the right, student volunteers from the McGregors come out and support the day. They volunteer as a part of it. Hugh, who is on the in town, yes, as well as he serves on, I think, the Race Reduction Committee and comes into the school for the OSC meetings as well. So he was there that day. And so on the right, you have our fourth grade students participating and working with, and the picture on the left is the bikes all being set up in the shade. If you remember last Wednesday, it was pretty blistering out, but this was done in the morning. There was water available. And, you know, just gave kids an opportunity to A, see how a bike is built and be a part of the process and be invested in it. And here is a picture with the McGregor's, the Cycle Kids box in the background, and all of the bikes that were built and provided to the Beverly schools, well, Centerville. There are 2 other schools in the district that would qualify. The middle school would probably qualify, but just given our size at the middle school, it might not be the most effective deployment based on conversations. So if anyone in the community who's watching would like to help support this, that would be wonderful. And reach out to Cycle Kids. Really great organization focused on helping kids actually learn how to ride a bike. And it's surprising how many kids don't know how to ride a bike. So.
Thank you, Dr. Cushing. Before you move on to the next agenda item, on behalf of the committee, I just want to say thank you to Principal Julie Smith and to Cycle Kids. That's a really fantastic program. That's really great. Do you know where they're located? Are they online? Are they?
They're online.
I've already said it.
I know that several of the individuals are out of Cambridge. But where their physical location is, I don't know.
Great. That's great. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to recognize 2 of our in-district artists. Recently, there was a show at Montserrat College of Art. Senior Chloe Busselet won a gold key for her portfolio submission. Chloe is unable to be here due to a track meet this evening, but we do have with us today Senior Lena Ramos, and he has won a gold key for his individual piece featured here, and would like to call Lena forward and recognize the achievement. And if you have anything to say about your piece or anything along those lines, but if you could just tell the committee where you're going to school next year, not that it's very obvious, and what you'll be studying.
Hello, thank you. So I made the painting about having a passion for music, which I love music. I've been playing for multiple instruments for a few years. So that piece was pretty good. I used it for my AP art portfolio, and yeah, it was pretty fun to make. And I'm going to Rhode Island School of Design, and I'll be focusing on painting. So I'm very excited. Thank you.
And
Sorry, microphone, thank you. I would entertain a motion for a 3-minute recess if anybody feels. Can I get a first? So moved. Second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. We'll be back in 3 minutes.
And I forgot all about it. And then
All
I
right,
forgot about
when Mr. Taylor's ready, we're gonna bring us back together. All right, that was pretty great. Thanks, Dr. Cushing, and Talina, and folks. Oh, he's got to grab his microphone.
And while it'll be post-graduation, we'll extend the invitation again to Chloe. We will have a substantial number of athletes here next time for our winter sports recognitions. So on June 10th, just so that the committee's aware. I also want to take a moment to say I'm not quite sure of the score of tonight's game. Let me just check real quick.
Dr. Cushing, I think we have an update.
Hold on, let's just take a quick peek. They,
What's your microphone? There you go.
did they win?
9-8 in
Oh, yeah,
overtime.
they just,
Nice.
So
yep.
congratulations to our girls. The last update I got was, I think, 6-5, seemed like a battle royale, and the fact that it went to that in overtime, congratulations to them. In the future, I would like to suggest canceling any school committee meetings that are up against MIA tournament games.
I'll ask Ms. Visnick to take that into consideration.
So tomorrow we have girls tennis away, May 28th, at Acton Boxborough, boys lacrosse at Acton Boxborough the next day. And hopefully that does not interfere too much tomorrow night with the prom happening at Willowdale. So I think it's tomorrow, isn't it? Is it tomorrow? Is it next week?
It's next Thursday.
All right,
I hope
thank
it's
you.
not tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you. I might want to double check that
thinking.
myself. But we do have boys lacrosse away at Acton Boxborough on May 29th, and softball a little bit closer to home, but Acton Boxborough is not the worst in the new tournament. Well, new several years in for a 1 p.m. first pitch at Andover. So just representing our Panthers, and I really hope they had a large crowd there tonight and everybody came out to support what sounds like an awesome game. So I also want to take a few minutes. Jody Elder helped put together a little slideshow. We're offering an expansion of, I don't want to call it benefits, but an expansion of a parent portal for school health in Beverly. And so that is here. So Snap Portal is going to be a secure add-on to the current health record system. It's going to connect families with our school health clinics and nursing. It's both FERPA and HIPAA compliant. It's available 24/7 via laptop, tablet, phone, secure login and encrypted data transfer. So it's faster, more accurate communication with parents and caregivers for our nursing team and for the parents and caregivers. It reduces the administrative load and eliminates the need for phone calls and paper forms being sent back and forth. It's better compliance and documentation with DPH, Department of Public Health mandates. Medication protocols, immunization compliance, and screenings. It gives one location for all health-related documents, forms, and consents, and improved tracking of student health needs across the district. I feel like sound like our National Director of Health and Human Services. Benefits of families and caregivers, easier communication, update health conditions in real time, so parents and caregivers can easily update medical orders, notes, physical education, clearances for athletics, immunizations, sign any and all medical paperwork, and automatic email reminders for meds, because if an order expires, we cannot, under the law, give a child the medication. So even if we have the medication on hand, if an order expires on May 31st, on June 1st, when the child comes to school, we cannot give them that medication under the law. So it's available also in 130 languages for ease of translation. So this is what the login page will look like, and it'll default to the last language selected. And so student with daily scheduled medication in low supply emails will be sent. Parent will log in and see the notification for a medication refill, and reminders are sent until the parent brings in the medication. So, and the parent can also update the nurse. And so right now, as an example, the BPS nurses have 678 daily ADHD medications. And so this will eliminate 678 phone calls or multiple phone calls to do that reminder for parents. Yes.
I just had one question. Being a parent that had a child in the school system before that took medications that had to go to the nurse every day, I thought that the form that went home just before the beginning of the school year or the very beginning of the school year that the children signed, I thought it didn't expire until the end of the school year, which would cover the child for the entire year, so they wouldn't have to worry about something like that expiring.
So while that's true, the orders from the doctor may only extend to a certain period of time, and a refill or whatever it may be may not be available, and so that would have to take place. So while a form to do something signed by the parent gives permission, if the authorization from a doctor is not present, the nurses would not be able to act. It's a, in all honesty, it's a multifaceted approach to really make sure that no one is operating without the doctor's authorization.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
I have a question, but I wanted to see if anybody else wanted to ask a question first. So Dr. Cushing, you might not have the answer to this. I think that we still use Aspen for emergency contact information, correct? Is this, and if you already explained this, I apologize. Is this in any way collaborative with Aspen so that the
Yes.
contact, it is, okay, that's great.
So
Okay.
it'll upload and sync on a timely manner.
That's great.
I know some systems sync every night. I don't want to commit to that here because I also know that there are some systems that districts choose to turn that feature off for a variety of reasons.
Okay, that's great, thank you. Oh, Ms. Cahill has a question.
I didn't have a question until your question. Having had a number of kids that have been on Aspen and being substitute care for those kids, sometimes it can take me as long as like 6 or 8 weeks to get on Aspen to be able to access their stuff. That would be problematic with this. If you know, you're talking medications, you're talking like going to the nurse or whatever, it would be problematic. Who's going to be updating access to the site for a child?
So it'll be updated through the connection with Aspen. So I'd like to have a side conversation with you
Okay.
offline to understand how we can better look at our operations.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Quaylo.
I will piggyback on Ms. Cahill. I have been locked out of my child's Aspen so many times and not being able to get into it. Can't check report cards, can't check missing assignments. It's a pain in the tuchus.
Well, let's alleviate the patootie pain, and we can definitely work to see what we can do to make that easier. I know, and I'll be honest, I'm not that familiar with the functionality of Aspen. The thought of learning a fourth SIS has been a little bit daunting and causing night sweats. But the reality is I can look into and check in with our technology team, or to name again for the manyth time this evening, Megan Sudak, on if there's another option. I know that right now, passkeys, so having your phone be a passkey, that when you're trying to log in, many websites are now adding the passkey as an added layer of security. So we can see if Aspen is headed that way, if they're not there already. So hopefully get away from that password that you've had to change and is now 16 digits. And is it a star or a slash or a whatever it may be?
Ms. Robinson.
Just a thought. Maybe it would be helpful for parents if somebody could make a slideshow with recorded voice showing how to get in if you're on a laptop versus if you're on your phone, because it's different, like to go to, and how to go to full site, how to check a transcript, all stuff I know how to do now with 2 weeks left, you know? So it's, I think that would be.
I might add to that and say your weekly memos are incredibly helpful. Totally, they're your memos, but that's a great way to get some communication out if you wanted to share some information with families, whatever you feel like.
Right. And that's something we can do with the district's YouTube channel that we'll start launching more on next year, with our communication director as well, who's also me. Sorry, just joking. And so the annual cost is 40 cents per health record, so essentially 40 cents per student. And so we're providing training for the 25 nurses of $1,000. This is seen as a really positive investment to be able to help alleviate a lot of the minutia workload of making phone calls for parents and our staff, and hopefully to allow them to be more focused. Not that they aren't, but remain focused on the needs of our students on a daily basis. So.
I
that
recognize that putting that together creates a lot of work that is often invisible to us, so that's great. Thank you for the update.
And let me just get back to the main slide deck. And
Mr. Taylor.
I just make a recommendation, Dr. Cushing.
Yes.
This is a great portal. You might want to put some work on the portal people for the district. Because I know the folks in the schools are very, very occupied and busy, especially with summer coming. And it might be a good idea to push them to give you some best practices, since they've probably seen multiple school districts. Maybe you've seen this portal elsewhere, but.
This has actually been a slow rollout over the last 3 or 4 years for school district coming out of the pandemic to add this functionality. So yeah, I appreciate that, and we'll check in with them and Jody as well.
Push them to do more of the work.
All right, and now at this time, I'd like to call forward Drew Redmond from our high school. As was mentioned on the agenda, by policy, it is mandated that we ask and recommend the committee to authorize the operation of a summer school program contingent upon sufficient student enrollment. So we're here to have Ms. Redmond present. Let me just bring up her presentation. Sorry, that's the wrong one. And slideshow. There we go.
So I'm Drew Redmond, Director of Summer School. This is going to be my 4th year.
Oh, sure.
I'm
Thank
pretty
you,
loud.
BevCam.
I don't really need that, but I'll take it. So our main goal of summer school is basically keep kids on track for graduation. The transition from middle school to high school is a big one, so we have a lot of freshmen. And there are studies out there that show that in 9th and 10th grade, if you're off credits and you don't have enough, you put yourself at a decline of between 33 and 59% of not graduating in 4 years. So we're trying to catch them and have a little safety net for them, and kind of get them used to sort of what happens and get them back on track. And the good thing is we have less sophomores and we have less juniors and even less seniors, so they do start to remember that and pay attention. Dr. Cushing, hit me. So these are our graduation requirements. To be a full freshman, you have to earn 35 credits. I'm sorry, to be a full sophomore, 35 credits, 75 credits to get to grade 11, and 105 to get to grade 12. So we do have a lot of graduation requirements, but there are some safety nets in there for the kids. Hit me again. Here we go. So once again, it's just basically credit recovery, makeup failures. The biggest classes that we have are math and English, because you have to take it all 4 years. And the goal is hopefully the kid, if they go to summer school, do not have to take 2 maths or 2 English in the same year. I think English might be a little easier, but 2 maths in 1 year would for a struggling student would not be a good place to be. It starts the Monday after the 4th of July, runs for 4 weeks, 5 days a week. It is open to BHS. Last year, after not having it for a long time during COVID and the years after, we did open it up to some surrounding communities. The only community that took us up on it was Peabody, but I'll reach out again this year to all the North Shore communities and see what happens. And we'll go from there. And then our daily routine, we have 2 2-hour classes a day with a 10-minute break in between. Christina Leal provides us breakfast every day, which is wonderful. Keeps everybody kind of on track and getting them there on time. And then on the way out, they can grab a lunch if they'd like. And our one main focus besides education is attendance and showing up and being accountable, because that's a huge struggle, which is what got them there in the first place. So we do try to be good about that. The cost is $200 per course. There are scholarships, so if you qualify for the universal scholarship, you don't pay. You can do portions of that as well. Outside students were $500 per class. They register online, and thanks to Emma last year, got us on, what's the name of it again? Unipay, so now we can get credit cards, which is great, and checks. So we're trying to stay away from cash because it's just a lot to manage, having all that cash around. This is our daily schedule. Like I said, they run 2 hours. We have 5 different teachers. The things that we try to stay away from is having freshman classes run at the same time. So we have the first block is always Algebra 1. The second one is always English 9 because those are the 2 fullest because those are the freshmen and we just need to help them a little bit. And then we have biology twice because they usually don't do that well in biology, a few of them. So they have to take one or the other. That's why there's 2 biologies there. The timeline in June, we hire staff, estimate the final failures, try to figure out how many kids are going to be involved. Letters are sent home 2 days after the last day. The guidance counselors call, I call again, I email again, and we're trying to get as many kids engaged as possible. As we know, the kids that fall through the cracks, usually, it's hard to get a hold of people sometimes, so we're trying our best to get a hold of them. I make a lot of calls on the 4th of July because people tend to be home. And they always like to hear from me. So I try to get as many kids in there as possible. Like I said, we always start after the 4th of July, and by the first week of August, the grades go in, and I just give those to guidance. What's my role? I do everything. I hire, I organize, I cover enrollment, I do the payroll, I do discipline, I support in a bunch of different ways, whether it's the teachers, the students, the parents sometimes. I communicate everything to everybody from attendance to just everyday stuff, rules, talking to parents about, behaviors and things like that. Talking about good things also. As far as organization, just making sure the technology's set up, the food's set up, the rooms are set up, that I'm in touch with Gilberto, is the best janitor ever. If you're watching, Gilberto, we love him. So he gets us all set up. And then I put the final grades in, and then I start my summer. Enrollment I have the enrollment for the past 3 years that I've done it. In 2025, we had 63 students. We needed a lot more. We had a lot of kids not sign up last year, which was kind of odd. 2024, we had 75. 2023, we had 77. But most of those kids are in 2 classes. We very rarely have a kid taking 1 class. That's usually an upperclassman who, didn't do the research paper or, had a rough year or whatever it happens to be. But that's mostly those freshmen and sophomores that are in 2 classes.
Am I able to ask you a question?
Sure.
Why do you think there was that enrollment issue?
I don't know.
Any idea?
I have no idea. I mean, I did the same thing I did the other years. I just make sure I call. I know the guidance calls. We didn't get many letters back with wrong addresses, so I'm not exactly quite sure. I did not do a survey. But these are all my wonderful staff. So Matt Mobilia, Gary Padonis has jumped on this year to do biology. Jen McDonald, Alan Soames, Michelle March, who is a 4th grade teacher wanting to transition to high school at some point, she said. And she was amazing. And Kim Valkener, if we do electives this year. We're still back and forth on that, but hopefully we will, because it saves a lot of kids. And that's it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Ms. Cahill.
I do have a question. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation. What's the process by which, if they don't have enough teachers to cover it? I had one of my students that was in a 10th grade English, and they had 9, 10, 11, 12. Everybody was all in the same English class, and they read a book, and it was a really difficult year.
Yes.
So I kind of felt like, they couldn't be curriculum focused because they were
So, so there's some things that will make me do that. Number one, if a kid needs a class that's offered at the opposite time, I'll stick them in a different English so they don't have to retake the English, because the standards in English are pretty much the same all 4 years, so they're not missing the standards part of it. But yes, they do a different book and a different study. We also sometimes have some people that don't get along very well, and having them in the same classroom when it's hot and it's summer and they don't necessarily want to be there and things escalate. Sometimes instead of addressing that every single day, it's easier to move some kids into another class and just sort of try our best to keep people, because we don't want kids kicked out or asked to leave or punished. So if I can avoid any situations that are going to be combative, I try to do that. So that's how I know the exact situation you're talking about. So yes, and then if it's still combative, sometimes I'll let them work in my office, and we'll hang out a little bit together and do things like that. But I try to limit the amount of discipline issues that we have, because we want them there. So whatever we need to do to get that done.
I have a question, unless anybody else has a question. Ms. Robinson, did you? Oh, no. Oh, thank you. So we talked about enrollment, and Mr. Taylor asked a good question. I had more of like a needs-based question. Mm-hmm. Have you noticed any difference from year to year in the number of students that have needed it? Not necessarily those that have opted to take advantage of it, but just those that have needed it?
The number that we're contacting seems to be pretty steady.
Great.
It's usually just a big group of maybe like 100-ish kids, I've noticed. And then we got, about 3/4 of those to get in there. Like I said, last year we had a little bit less. And I'm not really quite sure why.
Thank you. Well, thank you for organizing this. Ms. Robinson, did you have a question?
No, I just wanted to thank Ms. Redmond for everything she does. I'm sure that this is an amazing program because you run it.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. Thank you. Anything else?
Ms. Quayla has a question.
Mine's not a question, it's more like a comment. If none of you have had a child that has had Miss Redmond or isn't there yet, she is an absolutely phenomenal teacher, especially when it comes to special needs children as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sounds like you have some fans.
That means a lot. Hey, you guys, you made my night.
My child who graduated last school year is still a fan and waits for her to come in the store.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I hope that makes up for coming here on a Wednesday night. I appreciate your time, and thank you for putting that together.
And I thank you guys for supporting Retirement Plus, because that's something that affects me and a few other people, and so we were very thankful, and hopefully I will always come back and sub, but eventually I'm going to have to leave.
Well, thank you for everything you do.
If I could just, thank you, appreciate it. If I could just return quickly, Jody sent me a quick message as she's watching, so thank you, Ms. Elder. Orders from the doctor might be for short-term meds, injuries in classroom that require accommodations, things along those lines. The data does import from Aspen overnight. Parent portal, she wants to make it sure it's clear for everybody that the data is encrypted. So the data is secure. And she will create an instructional manual for SNAP so that parents and others have that and limit any frustration with this portal, which is not Aspen.
Thank you to her and to you.
And that's my report for this evening. Thank you.
Vice President Ducharme?
Mr. Taylor.
Did the superintendent need a vote on?
Oh, actually, that is an action item.
Thank you.
Mr. Taylor, thank you so much. I would like to, the chair would be happy to take, the vice chair would be happy to take a motion to approve the summer school program as outlined by Dr. Cushing and Ms. Redmond.
So moved.
Second.
I will take Ms. Cahill and Ms. Robinson for the second. All in favor? That passes. What is my number again? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Thank you. Dr. Cushing, that passes 7-0. And Mr. Taylor, thank you again.
Mr. Taylor is especially punchy from the drive home.
Okay, so next up is my best impression of Ms. Visnick. First item on the agenda under the school committee president report is the norms and protocols document. We have a couple sections of the norms and protocols document that was amended prior to, in lieu of prior conversations. I'll draw your attention, I presume, this is a second vote, so this is an opportunity for questions, conversations, and then perhaps a pass if the body is so inclined. I will, for the sake of the community and for the committee here, I'll draw your attention to the parts that were added. Under demonstrate professional and collegial relationships, the second paragraph, there's a section that is in bold where it says, due to the mayor's role as the city chief executive and obligations under the city charter and ordinances, the mayor may from time to time be unable to support a majority decision. The other section was at the bottom of the first page. That's the section that I proposed. Again, this is under demonstrate professional and collegial relationships with one another. It's bolded. I don't think I need to repeat all of that for everyone, but I might, for the sake of conversation, I will, for the sake of conversation and perhaps a vote, if the body is so inclined, take a motion. This is an action item.
So moved.
Ms. Coelho, thank you for the first.
Second?
Mr. Taylor, thank you for the second. Any questions, thoughts, concerns, or suggestions?
I just have one thought.
Mr. Taylor?
So for members of the public and for members of the body, I would direct your attention to the minutes under the policy committee on the school committee site for the 1/19/2026 meeting. The policy committee did a great job kind of discussing what activities on social media would be appropriate and what everything would be. And I want to commend Chairperson Cahill for that conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Any other thoughts, comments, or questions? Ms. Robinson?
Thank you. So, all right, so on the part that you
Yep.
worked on. So I completely understand the intent, like behind the language, and I agree that members have to be engaged, respectful, focused on the school committee business at the time. But I think we also have to recognize how people work now. And like when I see a packet this big of paper that could easily be something we look at on our computers, it just seems to be a responsible way to do business in 2026. Additionally, the idea of having to step away if someone is texting you and says, "What's for dinner?" and you just do this and quick, and the idea that as adults we can multitask, it seems a little bit much to walk away from the table to do something that you can do in 2 seconds and be trusted to do something like that. So, and I just feel like some of us take notes on our laptops in order to think about like the things we want to say next, et cetera. So I feel as though the language needs to be a little bit more flexible. And I mean, we do get a lot of materials, but there's some things that, I know that the people in this room are busy. Dr. Cushing, Ms. Puglisi, Ms. Brown, like they can't get their slides beforehand to us for presentations. They have a lot to do. But when I can't see it and I have to take my phone out to take a picture, like that's something I know I have to do so I can see something better. But if we're on my laptop, it just shared with us like even right at the meeting, that would be more helpful. So I guess I understand the intent of it, but I feel like we need to think about, oh, you can't do this. Like I don't want to.
Yeah. Did you want to make a motion did you want me to respond in terms of the thoughts behind that for conversation purposes, or did you want to make a motion?
I feel like we should have a conversation about it and maybe
Okay.
talk about it and maybe we can all together come up with something.
Okay. I'm happy to respond, but I want to wait and see if the rest of the body has any thoughts. Ms. Cahill?
I do have to support Ms. Robinson's thoughts on that. You and I both know that the position that we sit in, it's almost impossible to see the screen as presentations are being made. So I think, from my point of view, I don't take out a computer, I don't take out my phone, but I walk home when my neck is crooked by the time we're done because I'm just trying to stare at it like this. So I do think there are times when it's beneficial to all of us to be able to have access to using our laptop to keep up with the slideshows or to just go back and make reference to something else that might bring up a question.
Mr. Taylor?
So I'll echo that I agree with Ms. Cahill and Ms. Robinson. However, the open meeting law is about as flexible as a small airplane or whatever, a big airplane, I don't know, which is unfortunate. And indeed, there are lots of people who need to use electronics for, handicap accessibility and other things, and I think we need to recognize that fact. And I think, Vice President Ducharme, you've done a really good job of stating here that we should remain mindful, that it should be avoided, that we should be present, and however we want to take the shoulds and the be mindfuls of is however we take them. I don't see this quite as a prescription of saying you can never use a computer.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Any other thoughts? So I'll add some thoughts, and I appreciate both of the comments.
Oh, I think Ms. Frost.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Frost. I didn't see your hand.
It was not
No,
up very
no,
high.
no, that's okay, please.
So, so thinking about like electronics, like a computer, and this is an opinion, a computer feels like if you have and you're looking at slides, that feels more business. Like you use your computer for many things. I don't use my phone to blow stuff up yet. I use it to light stuff up that I can't see. And I think that if just being, I understand the spirit behind it, not texting, not communicating, not wanting to, deal with open meeting law violations, and I'm so behind that. But I would be excited to be able to open up my laptop and not print out. And
Yeah.
if we had the understanding that, we're working.
Yeah.
And if there was a question, if somebody could let one of us, just say like, are you candy crushing right now? We should be like, I don't know. But I think that, a cell phone, and even that, you have emergencies and families. I do understand the spirit as well as the open meeting, and I appreciate us I appreciate the reminder. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Anybody else before I? So I have my laptop here. I have it up because at the end of the meeting, I plan to reference when the next meeting is going to be so that folks know when it is. And Ms. Cahill, you and I both have shared that it's really difficult to see the screen. And so oftentimes when Dr. Cushing or Ms. Brown are sharing a presentation, I have the presentation up here. It is not my belief or understanding that there is really anything that prohibits us from doing that. I don't believe that's the case at all. I think my understanding of open meeting law is really you just need to be able to use it responsibly, and that you understand that anything you do on your device during a meeting like this will be subject to open meeting law. And so this came on the heels of an email that we all received from Ms. Visnick out of concern that we were perhaps entering into like a slippery territory. And as you all know, we had to write back and acknowledge that we received that, and we understood that the expectation was that we were mindful when using electronics. So that's why when I put the language together, and I'm more than happy to, if someone wants to make an amendment or if somebody wants to make a motion to strike it, I'm more than happy. I've tried to be thoughtful about not having this language be prescriptive or be with the spirit of telling folks what they can and can't do, because I don't have the authority to do that. I don't think the norms and protocols document has the authority to do that. I don't think there's anything that prohibits, my opinion is, my understanding is that there's nothing that truly prohibits us from having a laptop open, as long as we are mindful that it does open us up as a committee to potential open meeting law issues. And so I just thought, since it was an issue that President Visnick reached out to us about, and we just happened to be talking about norms and protocols, I thought, let's just add it into the language so that we all understand, and agree that the spirit of this is really just to be mindful that we are to be as present as possible. And, my kids are at home with a babysitter right now, and I have let the babysitter know, and the kids know, that if I'm not looking at my phone unless it vibrates, if I see that that they're calling and it's emergency, my intent is to step out and take the call. I think that's the most appropriate thing to do, even though I don't have any reason to distrust anybody. So that was the spirit of this. But I don't want this to serve the purpose of making anybody feel uncomfortable. So, Mr. Taylor.
I wish to make a motion. I think I make a motion to drop the last sentence, which reads, "If a personal matter requires attention, members should step outside the meeting room and return when able." That is my motion.
Okay. So we have a first and a second. Unless anybody wants any conversation around that, I'm happy to take a vote on that. So the motion, just so that I'm clear, is to strike the last section. If a personal matter requires attention, members should step outside the meeting room and return when able.
That is correct.
Miss Robinson?
So are we just voting on that part, or like, can we still talk about it, or?
Well, I guess, yeah. So thank you for giving me a chance to clarify. So, Mr. Taylor, is it your motion that we pass this as it's written with the exception of that last sentence? You wish to strike that last sentence and leave the rest of the language as is?
That is correct.
Okay, so you've made a motion. We have a second. Ms. Coelho.
I would just like to add, you might want to rethink that bottom part though, John, because if it is a personal matter, like your wife's texting you or calling you, you might want to step out of the room to answer it, because you don't want to answer it in the school committee meeting and then you have to answer her and then the whole meeting's going to hear what you're saying. It's a personal type of thing. So that
Ms. Lennox and then Ms. Robinson.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I just feel, and I totally understand Mr. Robinson's point that we're adults, but I also think it is more professional of us to not be on our phones during meetings, because it is a slippery slope. And someone could say, well, I want to see your phone records for open meeting law. Like, it just seems easier to step out for that. But I'm fully in support of using laptops. And I don't see anything in here that, like you said, says we can't use laptops. It just says it should be related to school committee business.
Ms. Robinson, I think you were next.
I was just thinking about what Ms. Lennox said. I mean, you can respond to a text on your laptop, so it's the same thing. I understand. I understand what. I guess if you're just, I wouldn't even consider taking a phone call in this room. I was thinking more of a text, like literally, Mom, what's like chicken? Like that. That's what I can do, and I don't feel like anybody would even notice. Where if I stepped out of the room, I've seen people get in trouble for stepping out of the room in this venue before. So I think, it's hard to step out of the room when we're in here. I never know when I should be able to do that after 6 years.
I wonder if it might be helpful to say, I think, then we don't have Mr. Cahill or Ms. Visnick here. So, but I think we have the opportunity to request a recess at any point as well, if that presents any way to make anybody feel more comfortable. So, Ms. Cahill.
Maybe rather than deleting that last sentence, if we were to read, if a personal matter requires attention, a member may step outside the meeting room and return as needed. So I think that, you're giving them permission to be able to do that without saying that they have to do that, because, if my son says, where's my car keys, and I know that I have them in my purse, I can text, on the table or wherever, and that doesn't require me having to leave the room. But if I feel like, okay, it's going to be this major deal, like he's telling me, like he's getting an ambulance to the hospital, I can go outside and I can take that call and come back when I'm finished with that. So I think that like leaving a may and an as needed or an if needed, coming back to the meeting, or when needed or when finished, or rather than striking it, just changing that sentence so it's more user-friendly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Cahill, Mr. Taylor.
I agree with Ms. Cahill, and so therefore I withdraw my motion.
Okay, so Mr. Taylor, you've withdrawn your motion. Ms. Cahill, could you restate what your motion is?
I would amend that last sentence to say.
Oh, microphone, Ms. Cahill.
Sorry. I would amend that last sentence to say, if a personal matter requires attention, member may step outside the meeting room and return when finished.
Okay, so the motion on the table, just so I'm clear, Ms. Cahill, is to accept the language as is currently drafted, with the exception of the last sentence changing the word should to may. Do I have, so Mr. Taylor has withdrawn his motion. Do I have, that is her motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Taylor. I am happy to move this for a vote. I would like to just say that it is my opinion that while I very much appreciate the need to balance, again, my kids are home, and the desire to be present and respectful, I do feel like open meeting law does require that regardless of how easy or quick it is, I do think best practice is to step outside of the room, as quick as the text might be. My personal opinion is, if you have a matter that requires attention, I just feel like I'm comfortable with that, and I'm happy to vote. I'm happy to vote in favor of it, but I just feel like I want to say in my out loud voice that I do think truly the most appropriate thing to do is to just step outside.
And my opinion is that by putting may in,
Yeah.
I think the biggest concern would be if somebody were to text me now, I would be intimidated about leaving in the middle of a discussion without interrupting the discussion to say, oh, I have to leave. Could I have permission? So I think that putting that may in there means that, yes, you may, if you feel like it's something that you need to take right away. I don't think anybody should be sitting here carrying on a conversation with their husband, their child,
Yeah.
or whatever. They go out.
Maybe
Right.
maybe I'll propose that where the boundary is, we table that for when the entire committee is here. And since we have a motion on the table, we can just move it to a vote, but I see Ms. Coelho's hand.
We do have to vote on the amendment first.
Yes, yep.
And then vote to whether we're going to table it or go forward with it.
So thank you for giving me a chance to clarify. What I meant was, my understanding is that what I meant was, I'm happy to take this to a vote. We have your proposal to change the word should to may. We have a second. We can vote on that. My proposal to table it was really just the subject of whether or not we can take a quick text at the table. Maybe we hold on that. We have a retreat coming up. That might be an opportunity to have that discussion. I don't know that that's necessarily required to be for the body to be clear about that, to take a vote on this. That's my opinion. So if everybody's, Mr. Taylor.
I move to a vote.
Okay, let's move to a vote. So we have a motion on the table, accept the language as is, with the exception of the last sentence on the first page, changing the word from should to may. All in favor? Oh, wait, no, yeah, I can do all in favor. Nope,
I think we have to vote for the amendment first to change that language before we actually
Ms.
vote.
Robinson's shaking her head. She's done it a lot more than me. Well, we have, okay,
Robert's
so
rules.
let's do it for the sake of,
I'm learning Robert's rules, but we have to
we're all doing
vote
our
for the
best, and I'm
amendment
really
first.
thankful, by the way, to the administration and the cabinet for your patience with us. We're a lot of new people, and we appreciate you bearing with us. Okay, so I don't think okay, what do you think we should do?
We have to vote for her amendment first to change
Okay.
the language in that last line.
So let's
So I move to amend the last sentence. Somebody seconds that, and then we
We
vote
have the
on it.
second. Okay, all in favor of that?
Okay.
That motion changes 7-0. Okay, so now that we have, thank you, Ms. Coelho. Ms. Coelho, go ahead.
So I would like to make a motion to table this until after the retreat so we can all have further discussion with the entire body.
Okay. Do we have I need to get a second on
Second.
that. Okay, so Ms. Coelho made a first, Ms. Cahill made a second. All in favor of tabling this until the retreat? That passes 7-0. Thank you to everybody for the conversation and for the patience as we work through that. Next item on the agenda, we have 3 policies for a second reading. These are action items. You all received copies of them in your email and in your packet. Thank you again to Ms. Quill for making sure that we all have this in our packets. The first one is policy JP, student gifts and solicitations. I think I need a first and a second to open that up for conversation.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Coelho. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Any questions, thoughts, or concerns on this policy? Excellent. Okay. All in favor of keeping language as it is currently drafted on policy JP, student gifts and solicitations? Okay, that passes 7-0. Next policy is KBE, relations with caregivers, boosters, organizations. In order to open up, this is a second reading, so in order to open it up for any conversation, questions, or comments, I need a first and a second.
So moved.
Oh, hold on.
I was going to ask if you'd like me to excuse myself from the conversation and the vote.
Do you want to provide some background on, I mean, you can excuse, you can abstain.
So I was the former lacrosse president, lacrosse booster president. My husband's the secretary of the football boosters. I feel like I'm open-minded, but I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable with me
I
having
think
the
that
discussion.
seems appropriate. I
I
think that
don't
seems
benefit
appropriate.
financially at all. I lose a lot of money.
A reasonable
it.
person
Yeah.
would have a hard time thinking, Catherine,
Yeah, I
that you
just
would
wanted to-
benefit financially.
I do not.
But
I
I-
am the opposite of benefit, but I wanted to give the team the opportunity to say,
Yeah.
we're not comfortable.
I respect that. I'm going to be honest and tell you that I'm not entirely sure whether or not it's necessary. So I would say my recommendation, if you're asking for it, is to err on the side of caution. And I would say that anybody is welcome to abstain from a vote if they're so inclined, if that's helpful. Okay. I appreciate that. We are looking at KBE, relations with caregivers and booster organizations. Do I have a first?
I'll make a motion for a first for
Mr.
discussion.
Yep, and
Second.
a second? Oh, I'm sorry, who was that? Oh, Ms. Coelho. Any questions, comments, concerns? Mr. Taylor.
You know I have questions, comments, and concerns. I would like to make a motion to strike number 3, as I think that opens up, that specifically requires that all caregiver organizations shall obtain 501c3 status and file appropriate paperwork with state authorities and make proof of such status available to school district administration. I am making this motion because I believe that opens us up to liability as a school district.
Okay, so Mr. Taylor, your motion is to strike number 3 on policy KBE. Do I have a second for conversation?
I'll second that.
Ms. Robinson, thank you. Any feedback on Mr. Taylor's motion?
Yeah.
Ms. Robinson?
I thought that's been in practice for quite some time. The 501c, I mean, in organizations that I've been a part of in the past, we've always done the 501c3. Even back to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Even back to like elementary days. That's when it started, and I remember meeting as a PTO person with
Yeah.
Dr. Trocheck. So I think that's a practice.
Ms. Frost?
So I think the paperwork, so nobody in the district signs the paperwork. You get to look at it if you want to see it, but it's a tax form. So you don't have to, nobody here is responsible for it. It's not a school thing. I mean, it's related to the schools, but nobody in the district signs the paperwork.
Ms. Coelho, I see your hand, but I see Dr. Cushing wants to.
I defer to members first.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Coelho?
Not a problem. As far as I can remember, helping out with these organizations is back as my first child being in school, a 501c3 has always been required.
I'd make a
Dr.
friendly
Cushing.
suggestion that the wording of the first paragraph, in particular the last sentence, should more closely read, "For this purpose, the committee will officially recognize parent organizations upon completion of the following being observed." Because it doesn't really specify, but each of these 5 things are critical, and if a parent organization wants to be recognized and supported by the district through whatever use of space or use of, and I just want to say, I actually appreciate what Member Taylor's saying about the 501c3, because I don't want us to be liable, but I think if they don't have it, we simply say, thank you, we're happy to do business with you in the future. And, you know, not all of our boosters, I think, are probably 501c3 at this time. And, you know, there are other things that will come up in conversations as Ms. Quill has started to establish those meetings for me with the boosters organization, similar to my monthly meetings with the PTOs. But that almost an altering of the sentence, "For this purpose, the committee will officially recognize parent organizations upon completion of the following procedures being observed," or something along those lines. I leave it to the committee for the policy, but I think then it puts the onus of like, well, you don't have a 501c3, we're not going to recognize you, or we'll figure out a way to help you, point you in the right direction to help, because we have limited support to be able to do those types of things.
I appreciate that recommendation. We have a motion on the table to delete the 3rd paragraph. We have a recommendation from Dr. Cushing. Does anybody wish to make either an amendment to the motion or continue conversation? I have some thoughts on this as well. Ms. Puglisi, from the back row, thank you.
I would offer that this might be an instance of wanting to get an opinion from legal counsel.
I love that.
Especially relative to the fact, and again, obviously, parent organizations, caregiver organizations, they are separate entities. As such, the district has no responsibility over them. And also with the acknowledgement that if these are organizations that are accepting donations, then my understanding is that they would be required to hold that designation from the IRS. And so I would offer potentially a pause to get additional feedback, because I can understand the desire to not put us in a position where we've created a responsibility for us, or we've accepted, by some interpretation, we've accepted responsibility for an organization outside of the district, and also wanting to make sure that organizations that interact with our students and our schools and our student groups are doing so in a way that is compliant with what they would need to do.
Ms. Cahill.
Anyone else? Did you, Ms. Cahill?
I was questioning, like, what kind of liability do you foresee the school department having?
So I think that's a great question. Here would be a great example. Let's say Cummings Foundation, which I would hope they would entertain, donated $250,000 to a PTO, an unnamed PTO at one of our schools. And unfortunately, the 501c3 designation expires after 3 years, if you don't renew it for whatever purpose. And it's 3 days, 3 years and 1 day. And then the Cummings Foundation says, hey, we were supposed to get a tax benefit from this. And it says here in this policy that you, the school, are agreeing that you will ask for proof of such status. And you, Ms. Puglisi, or you, Mr. Superintendent, did not do that. So we're going to sue you.
Ms. Frost.
So I think that one thing that's not been mentioned is that when a body, we just got a new form emailed to us, right? There is paperwork, and they ask you for stuff like your EIN, and, I mean, this, and it feels like we're flirting with, like, governance rather than policy. I mean, the policy is, we have a 501c3. The policy is, you get a sign off from the building principal, or their designee, and this person and that person. I think, I mean, if we have the checklist, if we run it through legal counsel, if we tweak the language, I mean, caveat emptor to the generous donator, but I don't know what else. There's like, it's a lot more than just not reading this policy. We, folks do stuff to bring it to a principal and up the chain. And they do have to show that these things, or they're supposed to, I don't know, I filled out the forms. So.
And to Ms. Frost's point, I'll make a great example of where this sentence goes wrong. All caregiver organizations shall obtain 501c3 status and file appropriate paperwork with state authorities. Well, what about city authorities? You have to actually file paperwork with the city. Did you know that? Our PTOs don't.
So I have a thought, but I want to reserve in case anybody else has any other thoughts. I want to draw our attention to the fact that there's not one, but two legal references across the bottom of this document. And I think Mr. Taylor has raised some great points. I also thank Dr. Cushing. I thank you for proposing that the body consider an amendment such as that. I also am a big fan of what Ms. Puglisi has suggested. And I do think it warrants something of further conversation. I'm trying to follow Robert's rules here. We do have a motion on the table, so we have a couple different options. We can move it to a vote, which I'll be honest, I'm not comfortable with. I would propose that we run this by legal counsel, but I think in order to do that, we would, not to put any pressure on Mr. Taylor, but if you're so inclined to withdraw it, I think it would be prudent for us to take a couple additional steps before we explore amending this in any way.
I'll withdraw my motion if the committee feels that it would be most appropriate to run it by legal counsel.
I appreciate that. Mr. Taylor, can I make a request of you?
Yes.
We have a suggestion from Dr. Cushing to add, perhaps, for example, upon completion of the following being observed. And we have your suggestion to perhaps delete paragraph 3. Can I ask you to send a copy of this policy to Dr. Cushing with a request that he send it along to legal counsel for them to provide some feedback on that? Dr. Cushing, that's okay with you? Yeah, I got a thumbs up from Dr. Cushing. Okay. Mr. Taylor, if you don't mind, I appreciate that. Ms. Robinson?
I'll do that.
Just to change parent in the
Oh, thank
introduction
you.
to caregiver. I just noticed that because everything else is caregiver.
I don't see, oh, yep. Caregiver organization, for example?
Yeah, all the others are correct from my scan.
Okay. Noted. Okay. I think that's something that as a committee we can handle. We don't need necessarily legal response to that, but I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. Okay, so I'll make a motion to table this for future conversation pending some feedback from Dr. Cushing via legal counsel. I'll make a motion to table that, so that's my motion.
Second.
I think I heard Ms. Robinson. All in favor? Oh, you okay? Cool, thanks. Okay. Can I do that again? All in favor? No, please take your time. All right, that passes 7-0. So we're going to table that, and now we just have to remember to bring that back. Okay, we're having some great conversation tonight. We're on to the third policy. Policy KHB, advertising in the schools. Again, we received a copy of that. Hopefully everybody had a chance to look at it. This again is a second review, so it does require some conversation if the body feels necessary, and then a vote. Do I have a motion for this current policy as it's drafted?
So moved.
I'm going to take Ms. Cahill, and then as a second, Ms. Qualo. Okay, any comments, thoughts, or concerns? Come on, you guys are making it easy. Oh, Ms. Frost.
Just a quick edit
Yes.
that we can't do on paper. Can we hyperlink?
Yep, let me get there,
Thanks.
sorry. I'm flipping through my packet.
Like, is there a way to, like, edit, like, cross-reference, because we're trying to in the policy manual?
Oh, okay. So we're on.
I'm too old, I don't know the copy editing mark for how to hyperlink
So we're talking about the
something.
advertising in schools. Can you tell me where you're?
Cross-reference JP. So is there a way in our policy manual, if we could please, I think there is a way, if we could hyperlink it?
Oh, I got it. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think that's possible. Ms. Quill, would you know how to do that? Could we explore it? Yes. Okay. That might be, I think part of what the policy subcommittee
It is,
is
yep.
supposed to be doing is looking for opportunities to cross. So maybe can we put that together? Because I appreciate that recommendation. Can we put that together with when the subcommittee is ready to come back to the council or to the committee with recommendations for cross links? Can you help us perhaps remember, maybe we can collectively perhaps remember to include this one? I appreciate your drawing attention to this being an example of where we could do that. Dr. Cushing. Dr. Cushing.
Either works. I will say, and I'm not 100% familiar why, we maintain our policies through Google Docs. And I think it's because of cost, but those hyperlinks and things are done if done through the MASC policy manual service. However, given where we are with budgets and things along those lines, I wouldn't suggest it for now, but it might be something under consideration for the future. Also, I do have a question about this policy.
Yep. Go ahead, Dr. Cushing.
And I realize that this is one that is sent out, but the school committee may grant permission for advertising of commercial products or services in school buildings or on school property under guidelines and regulations it may approve. I guess that seems to be operations. And why would that be in here as a policy that is not under the purview of the school committee? Not saying that we shouldn't have those, but just for consideration.
Okay. I'm with you, Dr. Cushing. Mr. Taylor.
I understand, I do understand Dr. Cushing's concern, because you're right, we don't want to go down a rabbit hole of, interfering in procedures, and that would cause some concern, because that's not the role of school committees. But I think there is a policy that we are dealing with, which is, how do we want our schools to appear in our community in terms of advertising? How do we want them to be used? And I think that is a policy choice. Whereas, say, the selection of what business is profiled is definitely in the hands of the superintendent and is a procedural decision.
Ms. Frost.
May I make a motion to edit that sentence? And at the word property, period, and then strike under guidelines or regulations it may approve.
Can you read the sentence for me in full as you're proposing it?
Okay. The school committee may grant permission for advertising of commercial products or services in school buildings or on school property. end of sentence.
Oh, okay. So are you suggesting removing under guidelines or regulations it may approve?
I am suggesting that.
Okay. Does Ms. Frost have a second? Okay, so we have a first and a second. Any thoughts or comments around that amendment? I have a couple. Ms. Quayler, is your hand up? No. Okay. I'm not a fan of striking that language because I think it gives us, it should give us pause to consider guidelines and regulations that might be relevant. I also am not going to support the motion because I would like to see something added that references Dr. Cushing's point. So perhaps, I'm not making a motion necessarily, I'm just explaining my thought process. I would like to see that further amended. So it says something, for example, to the effect of the school committee. I would want Dr. Cushing to tell me whether or not he's comfortable with something like this, but the school committee, upon recommendation from the superintendent, may grant permission for advertising. So I think it adds in a layer of operations that's not currently in the language. Ms. Cahill's looking like she might have a question.
Well, but the school committee's not authorizing it. It's the superintendent that's authorizing it. And I think that's what Dr. Cushing's point was that that's his.
I think, and I'll ask Dr. Cushing to clarify, I think he's saying the opposite. The school committee may, the way it reads right now is the school committee may grant permission for advertising of commercial products or services in school buildings, et cetera. Well, I think what he's saying is really that falls within his sort of domain.
Right.
Dr. Cushing, do you want to?
Yeah, basically, I mean, any procedures of the district, all right, are authorized by policy, but not, you don't want policy to become a procedures manual. And so simply just as I'm reading it, it just says under the guidelines and regulations, it may approve. So whereas this policy has been in effect since at least 2018, and there are no guidelines or regulations approved by the committee, it seems as though that shouldn't be in there for now 2 reasons, but that it should be on myself and my team to put those procedures, regulations, whatever it is in. I'm not suggesting to strike anything else here because I do want to be very careful about the things that we advertise, where we advertise, how we advertise, all those types of things. I want to be extremely careful of for the slippery slope that it can become. But I just, as we're discussing these types of things, I think it's my responsibility to advise the committee where I see things. If the committee so votes for it to remain, I'm fine with that as well. Just, it's one of these areas that seems to be crossing over into those governance versus operational leadership.
Ms. Quaylo.
So, Dr. Cushing, are you suggesting maybe in the very first line, that maybe school committee should be changed to superintendent?
No, I think the school committee may grant permission. I think the overall sense of advertising, there was a lot of discussion of this about a year ago at this point for athletics advertising. I do feel like the school committee should have the overall opening or closing of the gate as they see fit, but not the day-to-day operational of the guidelines and regulations.
Ms. Quaylo,
One
yeah.
more thing. I know over the summertime, the PTO puts it out there in the high school for people to donate and sponsor, and then the first 2 weeks of school, they get their little cardboard things put right up on the lawn, which is advertisement too, and that is sponsored through the PTO and the superintendent, correct?
I'll reserve any comment on specific instances at this moment, but
I just wasn't sure.
yeah, no, I mean, that may Yes. I can't necessarily say where approval for that has lain in the past.
Got it.
But, yeah.
I might suggest that we have an option to table this as well if we want to wait for Mayor Cahill and Ms. Visnick as well. Since this is a policy that's been in place and renewed as is for a while, we have that option as well. That would be my preference. Ms. Frost,
In order to table it, would you like me to withdraw my amendment?
if you're so inclined.
I would like to withdraw my amendment to strike the words "under guidelines or regulations it may approve" in the first sentence.
Thank you, Ms. Frost. I appreciate your flexibility. Ms. Quayla, do you have your hand up?
I was just going to make the motion to table it for a further meeting.
Second.
Okay, so Kim. All right. All in favor? 7-0. We're having some great conversation tonight. Mayor Cahill and Ms. Visnick are going to have a lot of catching up to do. All right, it's 9 o'clock. We have a few more items here. I am going to suggest that under the superintendent evaluation that we're going to skip past that because that is a piece that I know Ms. Visnick was hoping to provide us with some guidance, parameters, and information around. And so I'm going to skip past that one and move along to the proposed school committee calendar. We all received a copy of that. I myself am skipping to a copy of it again in the packet. Ms. Quill, thank you for printing it out for us. In order to have any conversation, of course, as we know, I will require a first and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, first, Ms. Quaylo, and second, Ms. Robinson. Okay. Mr. Taylor?
Just for work schedule, are we having another retreat on Wednesday, August 19th? Committee of the Whole retreat? That's what it says.
I thought, so hold on one second. Where is that? I saw that as well.
Wednesday, August 19th, 2026.
I think what happened was we took the current calendar and kind of moved it forward and then tried to align some dates. And so here's what I am going to say I think might be the intent here. We are having a retreat. There is some conversation about perhaps not necessarily having a retreat, but having an opportunity for some additional training or conversation, which we might call a retreat, prior to or just after starting the next school year. So while I don't know that we need to keep it a retreat, my suggestion is that we hold that. I think we don't have to approve this tonight if we don't want to. Again, I might suggest that we wait for the whole body to approve this. But I think it is, for conversation purposes, I'll say that I like the idea of holding it there and then amending it if we need to amend it, because there's quite a bit of time between now and August.
And the other question I was going to ask, and I've spoken twice, so I apologize. Ms. Quayla.
Ms. Quayla.
My question was just about the committee of the whole meeting on the first line that's scheduled on a Monday that's remote only.
I can't speak to that. If you don't mind for a second, I will look up the current calendar.
A lot of meetings in August that typically aren't there.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we don't usually have that many meetings in August.
So, let me see. Oh, this is the, sorry guys, fall. Here we go. Okay, Committee of the Whole. So the current fall of 25 calendar has Committee of the Whole, and it has remote there, and that was Monday, August 4th. So again, I think this was, the intent here was to sort of hold as much of the integrity of the original structure as possible. I hear you. We don't know that it's necessarily going to be remote, so perhaps at a minimum we could change that to hybrid BMS. I don't foresee why we would need that to be remote only. Again, I think it's just a pull forward from the current fall schedule. I will say that I think my concern with some of this is that Ms. Visnick put this together and she's not here to respond to what might have been part of a conversation around what's before us now. So I know I know there is a desire to get this formalized so that we can all plan, reserve space, et cetera, but we will be together again in a short period. So I wonder if everybody is sort of okay with tabling this for when we have the whole body here.
I think before we do that, we should make clear what our questions are,
I think that's,
because I think there are two questions that I have.
yeah, if we're going to table it, I would suggest that we get our questions together so that we're organized for when we're all together. That's because my concern is that, Mr. Taylor, we're going to be repeating those questions again when the whole body's here, if we decide that we want to table this. Because if we approve this, or if we make amendments when the whole body's here, and when we have Ms. Visnick here, there might have been some purpose and reason behind this that we don't have available to us. And so we're going to just be back again to revise it anyway. So I think my opinion is some of the concerns, like the remotes for August 4th, is a valid question. So I think it's best to hold. Ms. Robinson.
I'm just looking back at August, and Gmail doesn't always put things in
Yeah, I
total
know,
order.
it's terrible.
But I think it may have been a committee of the whole that we opened up and had an executive session. So
Yeah.
I'm not 100% on that,
Yeah.
but that's what I'm seeing here, because a lot of it is,
What I'm gathering as well is that we might not all have taken the time to review this until we're here now together. So I'm wondering if the most effective thing for us to do would be for us all to do some homework between now and the next session. So we come forward with our questions that we're seeking clarification on, perhaps our proposals, a chance to look at our calendars, and then come back to it when the whole body is here. Ms. Frost.
No, I definitely did look at this.
Thank you.
And it was the Monday
Yeah.
that, because, that was like,
Yeah.
that's what's kind of, I mean,
That it's remote.
know that it's a Monday.
Okay.
So I definitely did look at this.
Yep.
Just because maybe I'll
appreciate that.
go away, but
Appreciate that.
please don't think I didn't.
I appreciate it. I
Thank
just
you.
was opening up the opportunity.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
been
yeah.
a busy week. I mean, I think the expectation is that we all look at it, but
Yep.
based on some of the questions and, I myself didn't notice a couple things and had to go back and look at the last calendar. So I would feel more comfortable if we punted this to when we're all back together again. So I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any more conversation before Ms. Robinson?
I'm looking at the school committee agenda and minutes, and it absolutely was a executive session, and
Okay.
nothing else is on there.
All right, thank you for that, Ms.
And
Robinson.
I just would like to, in terms of like having people think about things, I think we should give some thought to how we want to handle our student advisory meetings. Because I don't think last year was very, I don't know, it wasn't as productive as it has been in the past. So maybe we can think about coming up with some new ideas, how everybody can hear what these kids have to say, whether it's recorded and like a couple of kids present something about, I don't know, just something to think about. And I think that'd be a good conversation at our retreat.
I like that as well. I also like the idea of bringing it forward to the retreat. Ms. Robinson, can I ask you to do me an email? Do me a favor. Can you shoot me an email so that I'm trying to think about the subject of the norms and protocols, the suggestions that you raised around some of the language, and then around student advisory, just so I make sure to block off some time for some of that during our agenda. If you don't mind shooting me an email so I can try to remember to do that, that'd be really helpful. I do think that Ms. Visnick has been doing some work with some students around student advisory during the day. I recall her saying that she met with some students at the high school during the day. So again, if she was here, I think she probably could add some to that, but I think that's a really good suggestion. So we have a motion, and a second, to punt this to the next meeting when when the entire body is here. Are we okay to move to a vote? Okay, seeing nothing else, all in favor? Okay, that passes 7-0. Excellent. All right. Mr. Taylor, you are up. You sent an email. You requested this item be on our agenda for discussion purposes. This is the policy directives regarding resolutions, and so I'm gonna pass the mic over to you, Mr. Taylor.
So all I was suggesting via this policy directives was that we establish to the policy committee that they bring to the committee of the whole a policy around resolutions. That's it. And I'm looking at my fearless chair at the same time.
Okay. Okay, that doesn't require an action. I appreciate the recommendation. Ms. Cahill, if you don't mind bringing that to the policy subcommittee for discussion, that'd be great. Okay, so the next item is finance and facilities directives, the fee schedule. I believe it was Ms. Visnick's intent to ask the finance and facilities subcommittee to do some work around perhaps scheduling a special meeting, perhaps in coordination with our new director of finance, Mr. Mullen, around his availability, specific to the subject of fees, fee schedules, just discussion around fees, how we wish to approach it as a committee, any long-term planning we need to do, how it might be relevant to next year's budget meeting. So just really just I think her intent was for the hopeful agreement from our FNF friends to again, put together a special meeting. And then maybe come back to us as a committee and present some data, some feedback on conversation. So that was, I think, what her intent was. The next item was the graduation update. Graduation is not this Sunday, but next Sunday. It starts at 2 p.m. It's at Herd Stadium. I know that Principal Mark Thomas's office will be sending an invitation to us as a body to attend. I think there's a variety of different reasons why we haven't gotten that invitation yet, but I want to thank Mr. Thomas and his staff in advance for getting that information to us. And so just a heads up, it is next Sunday, not this coming Sunday. What is that, the 7th? At 2 p.m. at Herd Stadium. Next item is, we're excited for you, Ms. Robinson. So the next item that we have here is school committee chairs. Ms. Coelho, you're up first with finance and facilities.
Thank you. Finance and facilities last met tonight, 5/27/2026. We had gifts to schools totaling $1,250. We had grants for approval totaling $20,311. We had a new student activity account for approval for arts. There were 2 new policies for a first reading that will come to committee of the whole. And then a budget transfer for the utilities, along with a finance report from Miss Emma.
Thank you, Ms. Coelho. So I am up negotiation subcommittee. That is Ms. Visnick. She's not here to present an update. I don't think, while I'm on the negotiation subcommittee, I don't think that I really have anything to report other than that negotiations are ongoing. And then next up is policy review subcommittee, Ms. Cahill.
Thank you. The last time we met
Oh,
was
I
on,
skipped over myself. Sorry, go ahead. My bad.
last
No,
time we
please.
met was on April the 15th. No, May 15th. We went over it actually went out wrong. We reviewed B, D, and BK. It was supposed to be BD through BK, but we found no changes that we needed to do to BD or BK, and we'll revisit the rest of the letters in between there at our next meeting. We had some discussion about the AI and Deepfake and the potential policies on that. Mr. Taylor was nice enough to look into the FBI. They had a connection there about what their sort of outlook was on that. We had made a decision that each one of us, the members of the committee, would look into. Bless you. Look into our own sort of resources and see if there was something that we really felt was important to that policy. we got from the superintendent, who he was kind enough to send us what was being done in other communities. So I think we have a better understanding of where we want to go with it when we meet again on the 15th of June.
When we're meeting again?
It's the 17th.
17th of June, yeah. And we'll meet that and hopefully we'll all come in with our ideas and whatever we've come back with, and we'll be able to at least start a fundamental policy on that.
Thank you, Ms. Cahill. So,
Is it already June?
I know. So if you guys are meeting on June 17th, I see that meeting has already been posted. Our next and final meeting after that is June 24th. So I think it was Ms. Visnick's hope that we have something, if at all possible, to finish by the end of this year, if not as soon as possible into the beginning of the following year. So she asked me to just sort of like emphasize that. I keep doing that, I'm sorry. Dr. Cushing, when you originally sort of brought this to us, and I know that you talked about it in your most recent memo, your weekly memo, if you wouldn't mind for just a second, maybe reminding the entire body sort of why we're doing this, the importance of the proactiveness, and for anybody watching at home who might have forgotten or missed why we're even talking about this.
Yeah, the issue of AI deepfakes is really affecting students. The reality is that kids are doing, and I don't want to overgeneralize by saying kids and thinking it's all kids, but unfortunately, even innocent images are being turned into something far from innocent. I'll try to find it, but a UK advisor on this topic has advised not posting for parents any pictures of their children in social media sites because they may be taken and turned into who knows what. The pace of this is moving faster than anyone can keep up with. It's exponential, the speed. And so recent Boston Globe articles, I will find them and send them to you. I sent you a few links tonight on various topics, and I'll find the ones on AI. They also did a really great look at CSAM, which is instead of saying child pornography, because that entitles that someone had a choice in that matter, as opposed to child sexual abuse materials, CSAM, that is specifically what that is. It's the abuse of a minor, abuse of a child. And so this is a really important topic. This is something that the district should definitely have a policy on post haste, and to really and it needs to be thoughtful. So not to rush it without being thoughtful, but it's something that all parents should be extraordinarily concerned about with their children. It's gone beyond anything you could possibly imagine. And so I'll share the one article from the Globe recently on CSAM was very interactive, so I don't know how that will share if you don't have a subscription. I highly recommend a subscription. But I will do my best to make sure that information gets to you for your review as well.
I think any policies that come forward, oh, sorry, did anybody have a question? Any policies that come forward will require a first reading and a second reading, and then probably some conversation. So I guess what I would say, with an immense amount of respect for how difficult it is for everybody to get together, this is an incredibly busy time of year, and I fully recognize that it might not be possible. I wonder if the policy subcommittee could try to perhaps meet before the June 10th meeting, remembering that we need to post the meeting in time before you meet, so you're going to need to plan and then have time to post the meeting, if this is at all possible. So that I would love for us to be able to perhaps have a first reading on June 10th and then a second reading on the June 24th, just given sort of the relevance and sense of urgency around this. Ms. Visnick is not here to speak for herself, but I do know that she asked me to try to put some emphasis on, to the extent possible, getting something together, even if it's not perfect. We can amend it. This is an evolving thing. Because it's an evolving thing, I don't know that we're really going to get it perfect. And so what I think is important to note is that Dr. Cushing, when this originally happened, really sort of emphasized the importance of being as proactive as possible, because a lot of districts have found themselves in not a great spot because they were reactive. So again, with tremendous respect for how busy this time of year is, and I know you already have a meeting on the schedule, to the extent that that works for you guys, I would say on behalf of Ms. Visnick and myself, thank you. Yeah, Ms. Lennox.
Yeah, I just have a concern with rushing it. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like legal counsel is something that would be really important
Yeah.
with this. So I just do have a concern with trying to get 2 votes in that timeframe with also getting legal counsel involved.
I guess what I might propose is I can't go to legal counsel as the VP, and I don't think any of us can. The only people that can go direct to legal counsel would be either Ms. Visnick or Dr. Cushing. So with respect for that, I would say if the subcommittee has any concerns around that, I would say that you could send those concerns to Ms. Visnick and Dr. Cushing, because we do have legal counsel for a reason, right? And so I would say that that's definitely an option, right, Dr. Cushing? Okay. But respect the concern. I skipped over, Ms. Cahill, I don't mean to rush you. Thank you. I skipped over myself, so I'm going to go back to the Standing Committee on Curriculum, Instruction, and Student Life. Unfortunately, we haven't had a chance to meet in a little while. We do have another meeting coming up on June 10th at 6:15 here in the library. Since the last meeting, I had provided already an update on our last meeting, so there's really nothing further to say other than to draw attention to, we have 2 policies coming to us as a full committee for a first read. It's the IHBH Alternative School Programs and IHCA Summer School. And then the last item before we make a motion to move into executive session, because we will have reason to do that tonight, is as an opportunity for communications from school committee members, Mr. Taylor.
Oh, okay, you were going to skip over.
Oh, no, I wasn't going to skip over it. I was going to say we do have a placeholder here for any updates from school committee members. Ms. Lennox, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Did you skip over the superintendent evaluation?
I did on purpose
Okay.
because, thank you for drawing attention to that. I did on purpose and I mentioned it, but we've been doing a lot tonight. That's okay. No, it's totally fine. We've been doing a lot tonight. Ms. Visnick's not here and I know she has some information, structure, suggestions and guidance to share with us. And so I think we're going to move over that so that she's able to give this. Yeah, of course. No, thank you. So do we have any committee members? I'm guessing Mr. Taylor. Oh, Ms. Robinson does. School committee member updates, Ms. Robinson.
I just wanted to actually ask a question. I know that the legislature has pushed the bell-to-bell cell phone ban out until at least January. So I just was wondering if, if there's any discussion on how, is any discussion happening on how we'll move forward with that if we have to change our policy, which is working, but I know that they want
Dr.
to
Cushing,
have it
before
off
you.
and away for the day.
I have some concerns around it not being on the agenda, not because I don't feel like it's a really important perspective, unless you feel differently. I think it's a really important topic that we should probably have on an agenda. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean,
Unless you
I
feel
just-
differently.
Well, it was just a community, somebody just
Oh,
brought that
okay.
up to me.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'll check in.
Got it.
With that tonight. And I have one more thing too.
Oh,
but
sure,
yeah.
Ms.
Yeah,
Robinson.
I mean, I do think it is probably beneficial to have a larger conversation.
Of course.
But we'll adapt as sees fit. We're looking into, recently the state put out some grant information. So I've made that available to our principals to consider. Because if we do need to purchase yonder pouches or something like that, again, this is a moment that, I ask people to outreach to your state legislators, because I would, and I want to be brief because it's not on the agenda, but I would support what Australia has done in a ban under 16, and to really consider what these devices are potentially doing to our youth, and banning them for the 6.5 hours that kids are in school is, I would say, akin to a Band-Aid on a large wound, and it's not enough.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to have a longer and larger conversation.
Yeah, I just
about
wanted
it.
to
It's
just
No, I
bring it
think
up
it's
because I
valid.
think people are asking. And my other question, I reached out to you about this, but people were asking about handicap seating at graduation and where it would be. So just so they're not walking into herd, hopefully, and just not knowing where to bring somebody who's handicapped. So
Yeah,
do we
I
have
have
any
a-
idea where that
I have a meeting with
location
Mr.
is?
Thomas tomorrow, and discussing graduation-related items is part of that.
Okay.
So I'm happy to report back to you after that meeting.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Robinson. Mr. Taylor?
So I do have some reports from our PTOs. I attended Centerville Elementary, Cove, and Hannah's PTO meetings. And these are older because we haven't, as a body, really talked about what the PTOs is going on and some of the community engagement. And that falls on me too, because we've had a lot to talk about related to budget, but community engagement is really important. Getting to the heart of it, Centerville talked to me, and this is from April, about Cycle Kids. In fall of 2026, their fourth graders will participate again in Cycle Kids, and they're hoping to make opportunities for their third graders to also do so. They elected new officers, so congratulations to those new officers, and thank you for being so engaged and so involved. And I talked then at that meeting about our school budget, or what I thought it might be. And this gives you an insight into how long ago this was. There was a lot of talk about athletic fees throughout that meeting. So parents were highly engaged in those conversations, and I thank them for that. At the Hannah PTO, we met on the 14th of April. Recently, there was a meet and greet session for new members, especially incoming kindergarten families. At any rate, we met on the 14th, and they had a whole list of activities they're doing, concluding on the 28th, which I believe is tomorrow, with the Hannah Bake Off. They have an option, the kids do, to participate in a walk with Historic Beverly. There was great communication about school choice, which I brought up earlier, and they really like the communication they're getting from the superintendent. Finally, I attended the Cove PTO meeting, which was held on May 20th. I'll report on that one. They are getting ready, their field day fundraiser, I believe, and I'm going to get his name wrong, but they are going to paint their gym teacher to the wall, apparently, and Ms. Lennox can correct me if I'm getting that wrong. There is a dunk tank, which Ms. Twombly is fearing, but apparently will she's hoping for warmer water than last year. And one of the great things about Cove and their PTO is, as I was talking about the budget, they were really, really focused on getting our larger community engaged in the schools. And they were asking me, how is the superintendent planning to do that? And they had some great ideas between BevCam and other things. They talked about the trash fee even. So I really thank Cove especially for all the great things they've done. They talked about transparency, and they indicated that the timing of some of our meetings didn't work for them related about the budget, so I took some of their thoughts and shared them. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I appreciate that you attend those, and I appreciate that you are so thorough with your responses back to the committee. It's really helpful. Anybody else? Dr. Cushing.
I actually really appreciate Mr. Taylor attending these meetings, and I appreciate the feedback on fees. And, fees are always a difficult topic, but in all honesty, I hope that members of this committee can help make sure that the Beverly Schools budget is well supported. and realize that fees currently on the table with the city council might have a significant detrimental impact if not fully supported. And all parents, caregivers, and people associated with the schools should understand those negative detrimental effects that could come about if the fees are not instituted. I have stated here numerous times, and I'm happy to say it once again, I get it. With 3 kids, I fully understand the difficulty. I am stunned at the grocery checkout as watching the meeting last night with City Council. $125 sure didn't seem like it used to be, and I noted that bacon had gone up 50 cents in just the past week. So, I offer that simply as, we want certain things in our schools. And the question is what type of schools do you want? And the reality is that those schools require substantial funding and ongoing support. And so once again, I ask you to reach out to your local legislators and, push to move to support this, because there could be significant detrimental effects to the schools.
If I
Mr.
may,
Taylor.
that was actually the first line that I said at the Cove PTO meeting, was reach out, find out who your state legislators are, and reach out to them, and do it now. And send a message to your federal delegation and representatives, because you're right. That makes a difference in an era of educational strain on our funding.
Correct. And hopefully it makes a difference at the local level as well, and that all voices can be heard in upcoming meetings.
Thank you, Dr. Cushing. I appreciate those comments. So I want to make sure before we come to a conclusion that I mentioned that our next meetings, we have curriculum, instruction, and student life at 6:15 on June 10th. And then following at 7:30, we have our regular school committee meeting. And then we have just one meeting after that on June 24th. And that'll be finance and facilities and committee of the whole. The chair would like to request a motion to meet in executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, for the following purposes. Purpose 3, to discuss litigation. Beverly Teachers Association and Beverly School Committee as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the school committee, and the chair so declares. Purpose 3, to discuss strategy with respect to and in preparation for collective bargaining with AFSCME units, because an open discussion may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the committee. The committee will not be returning to open session following executive session. May I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Cahill, I'll take your second. Jerry Cahill. And then I need to take a roll call vote on this one. Pardon me for just 1 second. Okay, Ms. Cahill. Yes. Ms. Frost.
Yes.
Ms. Lennox.
Yes.
Ms. Qualo.
Yes.
Ms. Robinson. Yes. Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
And I am a yes. Okay, that will conclude our meeting, Committee of the Whole. Today is May 27th at 9:32.